7 o'clock here on Jox, McElroy, and Cubelic in the morning. But you don't hear Mac and Q. You got Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order, John Saber filling in for the guys this morning. They're enjoying a little extended vacation, I guess you'd say. Had a holiday yesterday. Took some time off. I know Greg's probably blasting some country music down at the lake.
I'm sure he's having a great time.
Cole's definitely still watching tape. He woke up this morning, went straight to it, probably breaking down some probably Vanderbilt film after what Diego Pavia's been talking about all week.
Absolutely.
So we'll try to keep the show afloat today. Well, we appreciate y'all as well hopping in with us. 205-834-9450. Text in, call in, have some fun with us. And something that we've been doing on Morning Jox is kind of having some discussion with make or break games for teams in the SEC. And we started off with Alabama and Auburn. For Alabama, we had the trip to Columbia, South Carolina, and for Auburn, we had Texas A&M. And I think when we look at, especially now as we get closer and closer to SEC media days, fall camp opening up, and just kind of our expectations and where we think these teams are. And what we saw from South Carolina last year is very similar to how we discussed Florida of, okay, well, we didn't really have expectations for you to be, 100% honest. It was, okay, well, they could probably find a way to, have 7, 8 wins and be very reasonable. Mm-hmm. But I think now, because of what we saw last year, when we look at, how close that South Carolina-Alabama game was last season, you kind of look at that trip to Columbia for Alabama and say, hey, if you're not playing at 100%, you're not on your A game. This team has shown that they're talented enough not just to, stay in the ball game with you, but they can beat you. And similar to Auburn on the opposite end, where you've kind of felt like the season was, it's just, okay, well, we'll see how it goes. Mm-hmm. But then the last home game of the season, you knock off a Texas A&M team, which literally had everything to play for, and you take them into a 4-overtime thriller, and you end up winning that ball game. So it wasn't the season last year wasn't what you expected it to be, but you had some bright spots. So now going into 2025 with everything you've done in the portal and all the guys that you've brought in, and you've had, in my opinion, addition by subtraction at the quarterback position with Peyton Thorne being gone. No offense to Peyton, but now it's Jackson Arnold. If he takes that next step, you look at a game like Texas A&M, and it's going to tell you exactly where this Auburn team is and how the rest of the schedule looks out for them.
Yeah, I mean, the Texas A&M game is I almost feel like every year for the last few years, that's been a game that we've looked at and said, man, this could be the, if Auburn wins this game, maybe this catapults them forward. And if they lose it, it's maybe not going to be a big surprise, but, these are kind of the coin flip games for Auburn the last couple of years that they've struggled with. And to their credit, you mentioned it, they did get that huge win in overtime last year, one of the more exciting games, honestly, of the regular season in all of college football. But now for this year, you played them much earlier in the season. And I think that's, again, when we were talking about these make or break games, as we're going to talk about throughout the show today, it's more where these games fall in the schedule, mm-hmm. as opposed to, I think we all know the Alabama-Auburn game is going to be the biggest game for us and our listeners every single year, right? So that's like a cop-out pick. But for Texas A&M and Auburn, you look at where it falls in the schedule for them. I think the Baylor game, and we're starting to hear this from our listeners more, is I'm starting to get a sense that maybe there's a little bit of concern creeping in there. Not in the sense that, Auburn's going to go in there and get destroyed or anything like that. But I think people are starting to realize that Baylor's pretty good, actually. Mm-hmm. And they have one of the better quarterbacks in Sawyer Robertson in the entire country. But getting past Baylor, you have Ball State and South Alabama. Those are wins. But you have the Oklahoma game that's on the road, and that's how you start off SEC play. And then after that is when you have Texas A&M. But A&M is sandwiched in between Oklahoma and Georgia games. Right. And that's where for Auburn, that stretch of games is going to be so critical because, the Oklahoma game, we expect both of these teams to be better, but it's more a situation of, okay, Oklahoma got the better end of you last year because of an untimely interception. But how much better have both of these teams gotten? And I think that's the interesting thing with this matchup is both teams were, disappointing last year, but we expect them to be significantly better. So it's kind of a good test there. But then for Texas A&M, if you lose to Oklahoma and then you lose to Texas A&M, that Georgia game that I know a lot of people are excited about being in Jordan-Hare, and maybe this is the year you get it done. you know, if that Texas A&M game is a loss, you could be looking at a 3-2 start to the season with Georgia coming into town. And then what's the sentiment of the fan base going to be if you are ultimately 3-3 after the first half of the season? And that's why I think that Texas A&M game is so pivotal, because even if you do lose to a Baylor to start off, you do lose to Oklahoma the week before, you can get back on track and get some momentum before that Georgia game, which is going to be potentially massive for Auburn this year.
Yeah, and to your point about, the teams that you get at home, and I go back to last year, and listen, I do love Auburn fans, I do, but one of the things that really kind of, the older I get, the more I kind of look at this Auburn home thing. It's almost fallen into that LSU night game in Death Valley, where I've seen enough losses and like in Jordan-Hare that it's only select games when it's crunk. Because to me, I understand. You knocked off Texas A&M when they were highly ranked, kind of looking towards an SEC championship. But I also saw you lose to Arkansas. I also saw you lose to Cal at home, and it's
New Mexico State.
Yeah, but that was 2 years ago. That was.
Oh, we forgot about that one now.
No, I
okay.
Try not to add insult to injury, but no, but like it gets to a point where, man, okay, I understand that. Okay, the last time you played Georgia in Jordan-Hare, it was a lot closer than a lot of people expected.
Absolutely,
it really was. But if you really look at that game, outside of that Peyton Thorne long run that they had early on in that ball game, they weren't able to run the football. And again, that was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And even last year, I will say they gave Georgia enough of a fight, but then they still couldn't get over that hump.
Yep.
So that's why I'm looking at this year. It's okay, you still have the pieces, but are you going to be able to put it all together? And like you said, if it's after an Oklahoma loss, if it's after a Texas A&M loss, you get a bye week to kind of decompress a little bit. And as soon as you get off that bye week, you got Georgia. And again, I'm not sitting here saying that I don't think Georgia's not going to be one of the top teams in college football. But even I have my reservations about Georgia coming into it, because I don't know what Gunnar Stockton can really do. Now, he did fairly well, but he also had to play it wasn't like he had an easy game to kind of get his mind right and just ease into. It was the SEC championship, the second half, and the college football playoff.
Okay, tell me if you agree with this. The version of Gunnar Stockton that you got, I will say, in my opinion, if you get the same version of Gunnar Stockton that we saw at the end of last year, we don't see much development from him. I don't think that's good enough for Georgia this year.
I agree 100%. And that's the same way I looked at Carson Beck when it was like, well, Carson Beck is hurt, and yet the offense still looks very similar to what it looked like when he was playing. Mm-hmm. And it's no offense to Gunnar Stockton, but I do think that receiving core that Georgia had absolutely,
didn't help.
Yeah, they absolutely, they
had the most drops in FBS last year. They were bad.
But they also addressed some of those needs in the portal and, through recruiting and things.
They did.
But also, I don't know if Georgia has reached that status of they can just roll the ball out. We're Georgia, you're everybody else, and you're not Alabama on the other side, so we can handle their business. We should handle our business.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't know if anybody can do that in college football anymore in this day and age. We've kind of gotten away from that. But no, I mean, the Georgia game is so interesting, and that is going to be a massive game. But, going back to Texas A&M for a second, I think what's so important about these games, it's the same thing with Oklahoma. It's the same thing with Baylor. It's the same thing with, an Arkansas team that beats you, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are the games that you need to start winning. And if you don't win them all, no one's going to hold it against you. But no one's going to, if you lose to Georgia, now granted, okay, if you lose by 30 at home, that's not going to sit well. But if you lose to Georgia by a touchdown at home, okay, it's Georgia, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the end of the world. Same thing with Alabama. Now, is it going to hurt because it's a rivalry game? Yes, but it's Alabama, right? If you lose that game, it's not, oh my gosh, I can't believe we lost that game. It is what it is. But when are you going to get to a point as a program again where these Texas A&M type games you feel really confident going into them? Mm-hmm. Again, doesn't mean you're going to win them all, but you have to start proving that you can win these games on a consistent basis. And I mean, that even considers the Arkansas of the world, the Vanderbilts of the world, right? And these are the types of games that you can't, in year 3 of Hugh Freeze, when this is the year, we have the talent, we put the money into the roster, we have the culture established. This is the time for us to shine. You have to win those kinds of games. And I think getting those early on, we are going to be able to figure out a lot about what Auburn really is capable of this year in the first half of the season. I think by the time that Georgia game rolls around, we will have a pretty good idea, obviously barring injuries, of what this Auburn team can or cannot be. And that Texas A&M game could be a pivotal moment for them to show, all right, we can do this in SEC play. We can be more consistent offensively. And then that catapults you in the rest of the season. Because once you get out of the Georgia game, I mean, you have Alabama, but the rest of the way should be smooth sailing, right? Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Missouri, we don't think is going to be quite as good. Mercer, you should be able to handle your business in all those games except the Alabama game, which I think is more of a coin flip. So you need to make a good statement to start the season because, yeah, it'll be nice if you rattle off 5 wins in the back half of the season. But when people look back and go, man, we couldn't beat Oklahoma, we couldn't beat A&M, not to mention Georgia and Alabama, how confident are you really going to be about the progress that the program has made when you're still only able to beat the bottom feeders?
Now, I do flip this around on the Alabama side of things because we saw them go to Death Valley, beat LSU. We saw them absolutely light up Georgia. But they did lose to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they lost those same games we were talking about for Auburn.
Right. Yep. And realistically, when you go back and you've had almost a year to reflect, when you look at the losses that Alabama had, do any of the losses from last year give you any sense of worry this year that it could happen twice? Just the losses. Like, what would happen? What would it take for a Vanderbilt to beat Alabama again in Bryant-Denny?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was the first one I was going to get to. And I think for that game, the reason that I don't have a lot of concerns about that game is at that point in the season for Alabama defensively, right, they still hadn't figured it out. And the Alabama defense that we saw the last 5 or 6 games of last season was significantly better than what you saw in the first half of the season. And so I think for that, plus having the game at home, I know you had a lot of Alabama fans in Nashville, right? But having that on top of just having that chip on your shoulder of we lost to Vanderbilt last year, we got to get revenge. That game really doesn't worry me. And you can, we can clip that and play that after they lose to Vanderbilt for 2 years in a row. But again, I think they're not going to catch you off guard like they did last year, right? And defensively, I think Alabama's going to be significantly better than they were at the start of last season. I think for the Tennessee game, that game, I just look at that as Jalen Milroe was bad. Fair. And that's maybe not fair, but, I mean, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn that day. I mean, that was the most inaccurate I'd ever seen him at Alabama. And then for the Oklahoma game, that would be the one that would give me the most concern. And again, with Ryan Grubb being there, that alleviates some of it because – again, I'm not saying you win that game last year if Ryan Grubb's the OC, but you scored more than 3 points. Like I feel very confident that you're going to be able to score more than 3. However,
Oklahoma's
with the question marks, Oklahoma is better, and with the question marks you do have about Ty Simpson, I could see that being a difficult game where we're kind of sitting there going, man, what's wrong with Alabama against Oklahoma? So that would be the only one from last year that really sticks out to me is, oh, that gives me some cause for concern heading into this year because I do think the Vanderbilt one, offensively, you played really well. Your defense just really, really crapped the bed in that one. And then the Tennessee game, again, you lost to a team that made the college football playoff by 3 points because your quarterback just had arguably the worst game of his career. One of them.
True. Because there was
the Oklahoma game was worse.
There was one that followed.
The second worst game of his career. Maybe the third after Michigan this year, too.
And and then, of course, you start off the season at Florida State. And I can understand... And shout out to FSU Dave. He's a loyal Florida State guy. But everything is trending in the right direction for Florida State. I still think Alabama right now is the better football team. But I do think that in a very similar fashion with Auburn and Baylor, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if it's a little bit closer than what we expect. But it would really be an upset if Florida State knocked off Alabama. And I don't think it would necessarily be an upset if Baylor were to knock off Auburn.
Yeah, I think Florida State beating Alabama would certainly be a bigger upset than Baylor over Auburn. And again, I think this is an opportunity, and this would be a game that you would look at and go, okay, what's the difference from last year and this year, right? Is this a game where you're in, and it's the first game of the season? You have no reason not to be fired up, not to be locked in for it. But again, these would be one of those games that you look at and you go, okay, they're a competent team, right? We expect Florida State to be a lot better than last year, but I don't see anybody talking about, watch for Florida State in the ACC this year to make that comeback.
Right.
No, I think, the expectation is, 7-5, 8-4, get back on track there in Tallahassee. But that's the kind of game that Alabama, to be fair, struggled with last year. And so this is an opportunity to show that that's not going to be the case yet again this year. But, you do have to go to Tallahassee. It's going to be a good atmosphere down there. And Nick Castellanos, granted, he got benched at Boston College last year. He is the type of quarterback that we know can give Alabama problems at times. So, yeah, I think it would be a massive upset. I think Alabama's certainly a better team on paper. But if it's a game where maybe Alabama, let's say they win by a touchdown, that's probably going to give people a cause for concern. But I don't think it would be the biggest shock in the world if it was a pretty competitive game, because I think we forget Florida State they had good talent on their team last year.
Just not a quarterback.
A terrible quarterback.
Yeah.
Terrible.
DJU. He thought location number 3 was going to be the saving grace, and it was not.
Yeah, give me Jalen Milroe 100 times before I ever got to deal with the DJU.
4. He was in Fansville too. Come on now.
He was in Fansville.
All right, go Dr. Pepper here.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that one of the worst investments that Dr. Pepper ever made?
Man.
Because he was the first one, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Once you notice, he didn't have a speaking role and none. They just had his picture up. So that should have been the clue right there.
Yeah,
I ain't think about that. I did. 205-834-9450. We'll take a look at some other teams across the SEC and make or break. And a team that was on the cusp last year. How about those Ole Miss Rebels? What could be the make or break game for Lane Kiffin and those Rebs in 2025? We'll discuss that on the other side. Keep it locked on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. 7:21 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian, Conrad, and John here with you. Having some fun. Just going some make or break games for some teams in the SEC. And a team they had some highs and had some absolutely devastating lows. That'd be the Ole Miss Rebels. Former Alabama great offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin, the head coach there at Ole Miss. You're a big Lane guy, right?
I like Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, you're a big Lane guy. And then the defensive coordinator for Ole Miss, old Pete Golden, somebody that you love near and dear. Ain't that right, Conrad?
That's sure.
Absolutely. But the expectation last year with the roster that they had, we spent this time last year
Playoff or bust, baby.
Literally just like it would all have to just absolutely blow up for Ole Miss not to make the playoffs.
Well,
by God, did it not happen.
Well,
did it not happen. When you saw Ole Miss last season, Jackson Dart returning, the best defense that Lane Kiffin has ever had at Ole Miss with all those dudes. And then you saw the Kentucky game. And it's, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go down to Death Valley. You're pretty much essentially fighting for your life, and one play changed the entire.
LSU didn't have a lead until the final play of the game in overtime.
End up losing that game, and then you go down to the Swamp with a team in Florida that was surprised everybody anyway, but they were pretty much on their last pulse, and you go down there and lay an egg.
All they had to play for was to play spoiler, and that's exactly
what happened.
Yep.
But in all of that, you found a way to be the more physical team against the Georgia Bulldogs and knock them off at home. So when you look at what's returning in 2025, what's going to be new for Lane Kiffin in 2025, I don't necessarily say it's playoffs or bust, but man, you cannot squander another opportunity. But I do think when you look at their schedule, start things off with Georgia State. And speaking of Kentucky, you got them week 2 in Lexington. Now, me personally, I don't think what happened last year is going to happen again.
I look at it very similarly to, what we were just talking about with Alabama and Vanderbilt, where that is a game you are going to make 100% certain that you do not lose that game again. You might lose to someone else along the way. You might lose to Arkansas the next week, right, but you're not losing to Kentucky in week 2. No way.
You got to rectify that mistake. And then follow that up. You got Arkansas at home, which is a team that you almost put 70 points on last year. So,
yes, you did.
I love Arkansas. I love Sam Pittman, but I look at that game as going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
And then you got Tulane, and you follow that up with LSU before you hit a bye week, and you welcome in Washington State. No John Mateer.
It's just weird, though, because it's thrown in the middle of the SEC schedule for them.
Slap right there in the middle.
Just kind of bizarre.
Then you hit the road to Georgia. Then you got to follow that up and go to Oklahoma. Then for the last stretch in November, you have South Carolina at home, the Citadel at home, Florida at home, and you hit the road for the Egg Bowl with Mississippi State. So for me, I think that LSU matchup in week 5 is the make or break for Ole Miss, because it's no more. It's essentially for both teams, to be honest, if I'm being honest, because if you're Brian Kelly, you drop Clemson. Understandable. It is what it is. You can find your way to get back in good graces with your fan base after that. But I think for Ole Miss, it's no longer, Lane, we love you, love the offense, love everything that you do, but these are the games you have to get. You can't go in there and win for pretty much the entire you tied the entire 60 minutes, and then when it's all said and done, you can't make a stop. The one time the defense doesn't make a stop, you lose to LSU. Because at that point, it went from the conversation with Brian Kelly was, okay, he got a big one. He got it. He didn't, it went downhill after that. But for Ole Miss, it was, you have absolutely squandered any sort of shot of getting to the college football playoff. But now you got Austin Simmons, who, again, in that Georgia game, he had to fill in for one drive, and it's like, whew, they might have some juice coming in next year out of that left hand for Austin Simmons. But I think that LSU matchup, it's because I do have potential college football playoff expectations for LSU. And Ole Miss, that will either decide if they're going to fall again or they're going to handle their business moving forward.
Well, and it puts whoever wins the game kind of in the driver's seat, I guess, at that point for a, at least between those two teams, right, if it were to come down to the two of them at the end of the year for a playoff spot. it would put one of them in the driver's seat. I think the LSU game is certainly big. The fact that it's in Oxford does help you, but I mean, you won a close one 2 years ago. You lost a close one last year. It's just, all right, are we going to get another game where it's 45-42 and it's kind of a coin flip of who wins at the end? Because while I love watching those games, as an Ole Miss fan, you're kind of like, man, we've shown an ability to just absolutely smoke the LSU defense, but for whatever reason, we find ourselves in these one-possession games in crunch time, and we're scoring 40, 50 points. And that is going to be a big opportunity for them because, as you said, LSU, depending on how their season goes, we might get to them later. But when we talked about it on Morning Jox earlier this week, we kind of thought this was the make or break game for LSU as well, right? Because they have a trickier path earlier on in the season. And by the time they get to Ole Miss, a loss in this game would be more devastating for LSU than Ole Miss, no doubt about it. But that's certainly going to be a big game. I'll say for me, when I look at Ole Miss's schedule, I honestly went with the game at Oklahoma for a make or break game for them. And so that game would be, let's see, 4 or 5. That would be week 9 of the college football season. And so for them, and the reason for that is because you will have played LSU and Georgia. So even if you've lost those 2 games, I feel good about the other games on the schedule that you should have undefeated in those games. So if you go in with 2 losses, then you have the Oklahoma game, right? We all know that third loss, the playoff committee doesn't like it. So you would need to win that game, and you still have South Carolina and Florida left. So there's still some pitfalls for you along the way, but you're at least putting yourself in position to say, hey, all right, we've got a month left to go in this season. If we go 4-0 here, we're going to be in the playoff and do what we weren't able to do last year. So, but I think for Ole Miss, I mean, the Georgia game is going to be massive, right? What can you repeat what you did last year? Because I don't think any of us predicted that, right? You might have predicted Ole Miss to win, but not the way that they did. And so now for them going to Georgia, is this a sign of, okay, maybe Georgia's taking a step back a little bit. Now you're going to Athens, and being able to do that again would open a lot of people's eyes, I think. I think South Carolina, again, if you're just saying you have to go 1-2 against LSU, Georgia, and Oklahoma, that South Carolina game becomes massive because that could be a playoff elimination game. So Ole Miss, they have a bit of a tricky road for them to navigate this year. And, my thing for Ole Miss is, do I think they're going to be good? Yes. But for you, Damian, what is there anything that you look at for Ole Miss going into this season and go, I think they got better in this area from last year? Because that's my problem with Ole Miss is I like Austin Simmons. I think there's a lot of potential there. Don't think he's going to be better than Jackson Dart.
Right.
Don't think you're going to have better wide receivers. The running game, I think, would be an area you could look for improvement, certainly. Defensively, I don't think you're going to have the same guys you had last year. So that's kind of my problem with Ole Miss is I still think they're going to be good, but outside of the running game, which can be impactful, I just don't, at least on paper, I don't know if I look at another part of that team and go, oh, they're going to be better than last year. So why should I have faith that this is going to be the year you get it done?
Right, because Lane Kiffin, I mean, he's shown he can win some big games. Like that Kirby Smart win he got last year it clouds the judgment a little bit because now I've always looked, at least since Lane has been at Ole Miss, I've looked at them the same way I've looked at Penn State. I know you're good. I can see it. But you still have those just questionable, like, what are we doing here? Like, how did this happen? Like the Kentucky loss last year, it's how can we stop this from happening? Because it's hard for me to just put all my chips behind you and say, you know what? They're going to roll. This is how it's going to look. But to your point, I can't find a true spot where I'm like, yep, Ole Miss is they've definitely gotten better in this position. Because again, I think Austin Simmons has the most talent. He has a lot more talent than Jackson Dart. But I don't know if he has that comfortability where, I mean, it felt like Jackson Dart just knew exactly what to do, how to do it, and how it needed to be done. But even he had lapses as a quarterback where it's, man, you shouldn't have made that throw. Like, I go back to that Florida matchup last year where you got...
Oh, at the end of that game, man.
That was the worst.
It was brutal.
It was some of the worst decision-making I've seen him have.
Yep.
And it's, man, that's what Austin Simmons has to avoid. Because you've seen it, even with Matt Corral a couple of years ago, it's, man, there's no way that this offense can be this high potent, this high, falutin, and then boom, all of a sudden it's Matt Corral has how many interceptions this game?
Yeah, like I think Lane Kiffin appreciates having a quarterback who thinks he can make every throw on the field, but also have the self-awareness. No, you don't. you do not have to make every throw.
And I think that with Austin Simmons, that one drive we got at Georgia, it was, okay, well, he got some juice to him. But I think for Ole Miss, it's kind of avoiding I can't even say trap games. It's just dumb games. Like I look at Kentucky as, no offense to Kentucky, I just look at it as a dumb game. Like how can you be better at every single position on the field and still find a way to lose?
Mm-hmm.
Like just still find a way to do it. Because it wasn't like Kentucky was. I mean, we saw the rest of Kentucky the rest of the way.
Hey, they almost beat Georgia.
Yeah, they also did. They almost did with Will Levis at quarterback too. And you see how that looked. Well, at least in the NFL. But I think that for Ole Miss, you just cannot have those blunders. Like you just cannot have those. This game didn't go out how I thought it would. Because again, you blew out Arkansas, a team that just got done beating Tennessee.
Remember what they did at South Carolina?
Went to Columbia and beat the brakes off of them. Like, it's how can they find consistency? And I think that's the biggest question mark I have about Ole Miss is just how can you find consistency? And I mean, I guess it's just if you shoot more, score more. Just go out there and just score as many points as you possibly can and just say, hey, defense, slow somebody down, please.
Yeah, and that'll work. Maybe not in the LSU game as we've seen, but maybe in the other games that'll work for you. But we want to hear from y'all, 205-834-9450. That gets you on the courtesy text line. Get your thoughts on some of these make-or-break games that we've gone through for Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss. You have any other? Who's your favorite team? Who do you think their make-or-break game is going to be for the upcoming season? We'll continue the conversation next on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
7:37 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian Conrad and John here with you, filling in for the guys as we have a discussion on the make or break games for some teams in the SEC, gone through Auburn, Alabama, talked a little Ole Miss, and a team that's really starting to come up. And a lot of, if you go back to our morning Jox discussions, is the Oklahoma Sooners. And I think a lot of it is because how bad it got last year, because Jackson Arnold wasn't successful. We'll just put it, quite frankly, he just wasn't successful. But a lot of things went wrong for them early on. And it was, their whole receiving core was essentially just decimated.
Mm-hmm.
But they ended up having wins against, the Auburns of the world, Alabamas. But you lose to Tennessee, which kind of we talked about earlier. Tennessee, you're kind of looking at it, okay, that win wasn't as impressive as it looked on paper that early on. But I think for Oklahoma,
excuse me, do you realize real quick that, because I guess I hadn't really thought about this until I looked at it the other day. There are only 2 SEC wins last year were Alabama and Auburn, right? That's it.
Dang.
That's it. So good for them and Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Absolutely. Until you said it out loud.
Okay, they didn't have a great season, but they beat Alabama. You're like, okay, sure. They beat a Kentucky somewhere. They beat Nope.
Welcome to the SEC.
Just Alabama and Auburn. That was it.
And then when you look at this year, because of everything they've done in the portal, and it feels kind of similar to how Billy Napier was in Florida, where Venables knows his seat is on fire, essentially.
Oh, yeah. Got to win.
You got to win.
Got to win this year.
But he had the wins last year, or
a win
last year. It's like, hold up. We can work with this. And then Jackson Arnold hits the portal, goes to Auburn. It's like, all right, bye. We ain't going to miss you. Then you got Denzel Burke, who should be coming back, who is a firecracker. You put the ball anywhere around him. I promise you, he is a baller.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get Jay Nott out of the portal from Cal, and a guy that you're high on in John Mateer. You saw this Oklahoma team in person last year. And I know you were watching with your crimson-colored glasses on, but it's hard not to feel some sort of optimism about how this Oklahoma team should fare in 2025. And I said that the Auburn matchup with Oklahoma was the make-or-break game for Auburn. And I kind of feel the same way with Oklahoma, because at that point, we're not expecting, at least I don't have expectations of Oklahoma to just be in the college football playoff, but I do think if they roll off some wins, that they could be in the conversation. But I'm not 100% in on it. But I do think that if John Mateer lights it up like he did at Washington State, then yeah, Oklahoma's going to be.
Well, we're having a different conversation probably about Oklahoma at that point,
right? But then I kind of look at their schedule, and it's
they have a bad schedule,
right? And it just doesn't favor well for them to have success, because they get all the heavy hitters. Like they essentially get everybody, not named Georgia.
Yeah, no, they do. And they're a team that, I feel like, it's a weird thing to say, but again, they're one of those teams. They went 6-7 last year. You could see them going 7-5 this year in the regular season and be like, that is a much better Oklahoma team. But because of the nature of their schedule, you're like, man, they only won one more game than they did a year ago. But that's, the way that it goes sometimes. But no, you mentioned it. You have Michigan. That's your non-conference game. We think Michigan's going to be better, but it is early on. Like, what does Bryce Underwood look like there for Michigan? But you have Auburn, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Alabama, and LSU. So, yeah, like you said, everybody that's not – essentially any SEC team that has playoff hopes this year besides Georgia, they're on your schedule.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you gotta go to South Carolina, which team you handled last year. The team that handled you last year, and it's – man, if South Carolina's taking that jump, man, Oklahoma's even got to take a bigger jump for them to be in the conversation. You got to go to Tennessee, a team that beat you last year, and if Tennessee is not where they need to be, right now, in my heart of hearts, I know Tennessee gets them at home, but I think Oklahoma's the better football team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Then you got to go to Bryant Denny, and it's how much of it was.
They're not ready for that.
And are they?
I hope not.
And that's the question mark I have about Oklahoma, because it's, man, if this John Mateer thing works out, they could realistically find themselves 9-3, 10-2. and it not be far-fetched.
Well, I think that, and the thing with that for Oklahoma is I think they would have maybe the best argument in the entire country, certainly one of the best, but maybe the best, to be a 3-loss team that makes the playoff, just because of how difficult their schedule is.
You get Ole Miss at home, which last year, if you watch the game, Ole Miss kind of took it away from them there towards the end, but Oklahoma, even amidst all the struggles, was somewhat in the ball.
Yeah, they're competitive.
They were competitive in the ball game. But, I mean, Texas, Red River, I'm not going to say it's a coin flip, but right now I would lean a little bit more Texas than I would Oklahoma because they did beat the brakes off of them last year.
Yeah, but we've seen some bizarre things happen in that game, but yeah.
Right. And also, when you look at that Michigan matchup, if they knock off Michigan and if they handle Michigan, does it kind of change how you look at Oklahoma moving forward?
Maybe a little bit. I just go back to the Texas and Michigan game last year where Texas laid it on them and we all went, wow, okay.
Right.
That's a heck of a win for Texas. And it was still a good win. Doesn't take anything away. You went to the big house and beat them. But then we kind of realized who Michigan, and that's kind of my thing with this year too, is it a good win? Absolutely. No question about it. But we kind of need to wait a little bit, I think, to get a feel for how good Michigan really is, to have an understanding, because they will probably have a true freshman quarterback making his second start ever against Oklahoma. So that's kind of a tricky spot. But I think that game is really interesting. I think the Texas-Ohio State game, I'm more excited to just watch that it's going to be a great game. But I think this game is maybe more interesting in terms of you'll learn more about the teams. Because I think we both know Texas and Ohio State are going to be the two of the best teams in the country, regardless of what happens. But we don't really know what to make of Oklahoma and Michigan. These are teams we expect to be better, but you would also maybe not be shocked if they had a similar record to last year, right? So I think that one's certainly interesting early on. And that Auburn game, with it being the first SEC game, right? And you beat them last year. I think it's an interesting kind of a measuring stick game for both of them to go, okay, we weren't very good last year. So how far have we both come, right? If you're Oklahoma, all right, we were able to win this game last year, and if you lose it, well, dang, we really felt like we got better. So is Auburn that much better, or are we still missing something as Oklahoma? And then similarly for Auburn, you kind of look at that as, okay, well, we lost to them last year in a situation you shouldn't have lost that game last year. So now, have you taken the steps to make sure that kind of mistake doesn't happen again?
And then the more I look at this Auburn and the more I think about Auburn, Oklahoma, to me, last year, Oklahoma escaped with a victory. But when I look at just what they have now, it still feels to me in my gut that Oklahoma gets Auburn no matter what. I find it hard because to me, and again, no shot at Jackson Arnold, that I think it's more mental than it is to be back at Oklahoma, back to the school that essentially gave up on you.
And if somebody's going to know how to exploit your weaknesses, probably going to be them.
Exactly. And also Oklahoma, I wouldn't be surprised if even as talented as Auburn is, and as talented as I think they are, it would not surprise me if Oklahoma truly handled Auburn at home.
Oh, like a convincing win?
Yeah, where we're kind of taking a step back and looking at both those teams of, okay,
interesting.
There's a little bit more juice than we thought with Oklahoma. Because say if John Mateer does go out there and light it up, man, how is that going to make Jackson Arnold feel when he's like, man, I just got home and I have no more excuses anymore because I have the talent around me and I still couldn't get it done? How does that psychologically play for Auburn moving forward? Because then we're having the same conversation again at the quarterback position for Auburn. It's, if he's this much of a head case, do we just go with the freshman and say, you know what, man, we can at least build with you for the next 2 to 3 years and just say, you know what, we're just not going to go to the portal anymore. No, we just can't. We got Deuce Knight. By God, just go out there and just play ball because you're going to have the pieces around you. And also, again, I just like the game last year. It irks me so much that Auburn had all those opportunities to really put it away, and Michael Hawkins Jr. goes out and he's like, "Oh, this is my first start. Okay, cool," and play with no kind of. He threw caution into the wind. It's like, you know what? I ain't got nothing to lose. I ain't supposed to be in this position. All right, cool. Let's go out there and ball. But now when you got John Mateer, which, I mean, you go back and watch him at Washington State. He makes half the throws that he was making at Washington State at Oklahoma. that game could be 50, 56-48. And it's like, well, one of these teams had to make a stop, and it just had to be Oklahoma that one time. But I think that when I look at this Oklahoma team and I look at that Auburn game, because it is the SEC opener, it will tell me all I need to know. And again, it's early, it's September, but it will tell me all I need to know from both teams' perspectives of Auburn is still a piece away and Oklahoma is trending in the right direction.
Yeah, and I know we're talking about Oklahoma, but I think, too, for Auburn, your first impression this year, and I know that it's not the first game of the season, but in terms of SEC play, I think first impressions are going to be very important this year in terms of getting the fan base to believe that everything that they've kind of built up in their minds this offseason is going to be validated. And so if you go out and you lay an egg early in this game, how are people going to respond to that? What, like you said, what is that going to do mentally, psychologically to the team, the fan base, Jackson Arnold, Hugh Freeze even? And I think that's a very interesting angle to take in this game. Because, this is certainly going to be big for both Oklahoma and Auburn early on to get what will likely be a pretty good win on their resume.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. We see you on the text line. You can call in as well and discuss just what are the make or break games for some teams in the SEC. We'll hear from you on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Jox. Welcome back into McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damien, John, and Conrad here with you. Getting your reaction on the Jox text lines, the phone lines as well, 205-834-9450. You can text or call in there. Drake, the resident Florida fan, he texted in. He says, to be honest, I don't know who has the tougher schedule, Florida or Oklahoma. Let me take a look at Florida's schedule now. Oklahoma, like I said, like we talked about, man, it is.
Oklahoma's is brutal. And I mean, yeah, Florida's is tough. I guess, part of it goes to, do you think Michigan's going to be a tougher non-conference game or Miami?
True.
That'd be part of it.
For Oklahoma, though, like, they don't, the non-cons, yeah, they got a little bit easier path besides Michigan. But when you look at just within conference, they got Auburn, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and LSU, where Florida, the only caveat, you got Kentucky in there.
Well, I was about to say, and the thing for, when you compare these schedules, essentially is they're very similar. But again, who do you think is going to be tougher, Miami or Michigan? And then who do you think is going to be a tougher game, Alabama or Georgia? Because Florida has Georgia, Oklahoma has Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, Florida gets Georgia at home. Oklahoma has to go to Alabama. So those are really, they play a lot of the same teams. And again, if you're in the SEC and you think you have a shot at the playoff, probably on that schedule.
Yeah. And I think for Florida, you sprinkle in a Mississippi State and Kentucky, like you got.
Yeah, you got to mix it up a little bit.
Whereas Oklahoma, it ain't looking too pretty as far as just when you look at the conference play.
I would probably go, and I think part of this too is because Florida avoids Auburn. But I expect Auburn to be better.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably lean slightly Oklahoma. I also think for Oklahoma, that stretch at the end, they have Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, 5 games in a row. I know Florida has a very difficult stretch earlier on in the season. That is a crazy stretch of games.
Yeah. So,
and 3 of those are on the road.
Somebody else takes it in and says who has the hardest SEC schedule: Georgia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, or Florida. I'm just gonna say Kentucky because I think I look at them more internally as like, can they find a conference win? They got one against Ole Miss last year, so congratulations. But I look at it this year, and they have Zach Calzada as their quarterback too.
Yeah, they really. Again, they could pull off an upset, but Vanderbilt's the only SEC team they play that I think you would even really entertain them winning that game. They're not. Ole Miss, South Carolina, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, Vanderbilt. I don't see a win.
Yeah, like that's the only one I could really have a conversation about. The rest of them, like,
But you do get Texas Tech, or not Texas Tech, excuse me, Tennessee Tech, much different opponent. Tennessee Tech, Eastern Michigan, and Toledo. So,
yeah. Now I ain't gonna lie.
I see 3 wins on their schedule, and it's those 2.
Toledo got Mississippi State last year.
This is true.
And y'all said something on 3-man front yesterday, and somebody asked, who would you have? Who do you think would actually get a conference win between Kentucky or Mississippi State? I look at Mississippi State the same way I looked at Tennessee year 1 under Josh Heupel. The way that they play, if they can connect on a few more home runs, because they're going to take them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the chances that Mississippi State takes, I would lean more to them than Kentucky, because they openly get into the fist fights that they just cannot win because of the Jimmies and Joes. And I think the system that Mississippi State runs at least gives them chances. Like, they're not afraid to, drop one over the top. Because you look at when they played Georgia last year. Now, again, you don't have the Jimmies and Joes, but there were plays where it's like, wait a minute, Mississippi State just hit a 70-yard bomb on Georgia. Like, wait, where'd that come from? Whereas Kentucky, they have to slow play it.
I was about to say, if you score over 17 points, you're going to win.
Right. They limit their own possessions.
Yeah.
And again, Zach Calzada is their quarterback. Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, don't know if you have a lot of reason to believe that that's going to be better than Brock Vandegrift or anything else that they've had recently.
Yeah, they had Will Levis, though. He got him 10. They had 10 wins. He had 10 wins. He had 10 wins. In college. He was great in college. Good.
How many interceptions
did
he have in that Vanderbilt game?
I think 2 one year and then maybe like 5 the next. Who knows? More Mac and Cube next.
Hour number 2, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Greg and Cole taking a little bit of an extended weekend, so instead you've got Damian Mitchell, John Saber, and myself, Conrad Van Order. We're holding down the fort until 10 o'clock when we hand you off to three-man front. Appreciate y'all being with us here on your Friday morning. We've been going through make-or-break games for a bunch of teams in the SEC, Auburn, Alabama, Oklahoma, Ole Miss. So having a good conversation there. Appreciate y'all. Some of you already chiming in on the text line, 205-834-9450 will get you on the courtesy text line, and we will continue that conversation here in just a moment. But first, let me tell you about our friends at Train, because a long summer of heat and humidity are ahead. Have you looked at the temperatures for this upcoming week? It is going to be a scorcher, so you need to keep your home comfortable with Train, America's most reliable HVAC brand. And to give you more peace of mind, offer ends today, but Train is currently offering up to 10-year warranties on parts and labor on select home comfort systems. So if that's something that sounds up your alley, make sure you get in touch with Train today, because that deal is about to run out. To learn more about this offer and to find a specialist near you, you can go visit them online at train.com.
205-834-9450. Your texts, your calls, always welcome here on Jox. Let's go to the phone lines. Our buddy Larry's on the road. Wants to talk some schedules in the SEC. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, guys. Enjoy the show. I always want to say, back in Q, better watch out for you fellas. I got some news for them.
Hey, you better tell them.
There you go. No, but last year, especially Conrad, I know you said you played ball, Damien, in high school or college. I don't know if you played college, but a question is, and I'm just asking both of y'all. Now, last year when Alabama lost to Oklahoma, and I think you said, Conrad, you went out there, correct?
Unfortunately, yeah, I was there.
Okay, now, I know this is not an excuse. This is just factual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hear me out. And y'all probably made this point. I'm sure y'all have. I don't know if you have or not. But just think about it like this. When Alabama played Georgia and they just looked phenomenal in the first half and pulled it out in the second half, the next game they didn't even like they showed up against Vanderbilt. The same point against, I think Alabama played LSU and then went to Oklahoma. Is that correct?
Yep.
But I'm just saying, from the mental aspect of the game, especially you, obviously, Damien, too, mental makes as much or more of the game as it does physical, and I just wanted to point that out. And even though Saban was gone and it was our new coach, DeBoer, with a new coach, it's hard to sometimes figure, I'm just throwing that out on the table.
So you think Alabama maybe got a little bit of a big head at times with the Georgia game, how they played against LSU, and then that carried over to the next weekend and caused them some problems?
Well, look at it from this perspective. When Mr. Milroe played in Baton Rouge, they couldn't even touch the guy. He ran for how many touchdowns?
Yeah.
And then they just blew LSU off the field, and it was a big win for them. Everybody thought it was going to be a close game. But no one thought Alabama was going to blow Georgia off the field like they did in the first half. But yet they pulled it out for the last play there at the end of the game. Well, of course, Georgia drove the field but threw an interception. But I'm just looking at it from a perspective of a new coach and a team. It's as much psychological as physical, mental. So, I don't know. That's just the point I wanted to make, guys, and hear what y'all think about that. And love your show always, guys. I'm an OTR specialist. I'm an over-the-road specialist, so I just want to
Nah, man, Larry, we appreciate you as always. There is a mental aspect that comes with it, because, and I think like it's kind of a generational thing, because I do think these athletes now, their mindset's a little different. That, some coaches, and, I'm not going to sit here and knock Kalen DeBoer or anybody, but
do it.
Some games do kind of elevate. Like you have that just.
You understand it means more than the other game. Technically, every game's equal, but there are some that as a player, it means a little something more.
But that's where I have the utmost respect about Nick Saban, because you hear a lot of his players, like, when they go into the meeting rooms and things like that, there's a sense of urgency, like, man, this Georgia State team if I don't do my job, this Georgia State team may beat us 45-0. And Greg has talked about it too, that there's a psychological aspect where he made you feel like, okay, yeah, you beat Georgia, congratulations, that game's over with. This Vanderbilt team, if you don't stop number 2, y'all are losing. Like there's almost, I'm not gonna say a disconnect, but there's sometimes where you can kind of look at tape, you can look at film, and you're like, man, I ain't got to deal with Malachi Starks this week. That number 24 ain't even on the same boat with him. I can kind of chill a little bit on this route. And then you do it, and you look up, and it's a pick going the other way, and it's like, woo, okay, now you have to get I say it a lot. You got to stay ready unless you never got to get ready. Like if you stay ready, you never to get ready. You're not ready. Like you're mentally kind of like checking out a little bit. It's like, oh, I can take a little bit of a break off. And that's the thing about coaching. You have to put the point of emphasis on you have to, if you do not do your job, all hell will break loose. And a lot of players don't play with that sense of urgency of, man, I can't believe I that dig route was supposed to be 12. I ran it at, 14. Now my quarterback's looking at a different window. They don't think about it like that. But coaches have to almost coach you to the ground to build you back up for Saturday.
So I'm not asking you to, take shots at anybody or anything, but for last year, do you think maybe, because that was one of the things that we heard about with Kalen DeBoer, right, is his leadership style is very different. He's not, he's, I guess what you would consider more of a player coach, right?
Yeah,
like
he's nice.
Yeah, he's nice.
He's nice.
Okay, do you think that is what caused some of those issues where potentially maybe you're not quite as focused because your coach isn't on your ass every day because he's more of a, hey, I'm going to trust that you're going to take care of your business, and then, oops, I didn't take care of my business, but my coach is, he's nice to me about it. So do you think that maybe was some of the problems that Alabama had last year?
I do think so. Because sometimes.
Can you adjust to that, though, as a player, going from how Nick Saban did things to the way Kalen DeBoer does things?
See, I think that's where a lot of it it's all about where you come from or how you've been coached before. Because if you look at Jamarcus Shepard and the way that he coaches receivers,
he would have fit right at home on a Nick Saban staff.
Would have been perfect.
Yeah.
And then some guys have that, we can fix it on film. I ain't got to MF you up and down the field.
Mm-hmm.
But some players respond well to that.
See, that's how I responded. Like when I was growing up,
Yep.
If you got after me, that's how I responded. Because that's when I knew, okay, I don't want that to happen ever again.
Man, I'm telling you, from my perspective, I had two wide receiver coaches when I was at Birmingham Southern. One, love you, Coach James, if you're listening. He was not the rah-rah. Like, he didn't have it. Like, it just was not him. No offense. He was a good coach. But then I had Cody Piercy for 2 years, and he was, we gonna get this right or you gone. Like, it's next man up mentality. Like, we need to be pristine in everything that we do. Stance and start to the explosion out of your routes, in and out of your breaks. I need it looking like this, by this. If you can't get it done, next man will. And I had that mentality going out. Like, man, if I don't run this route like I'm supposed to, boom, somebody else is coming in. Whereas Coach James was a little bit of, oh, we'll fix it. Like, we'll fix it. And it's like, all right, cool. And I've always responded to, like, in my high school, when I had Coach Hubbard, Brent Hubbard, he was not my friend. Like, he had friendly moments, but he was not my friend. And I knew there was a line that we would never cross. But he also expected greatness out of me. And I've heard Greg say this about Coach Saban. It's the absolute bar, like the absolute foundation is excellence. And I think that's what took Alabama to a whole nother level, took them to a whole nother mindset. And I think Kalen DeBoer kind of, he wasn't the Ryan Grubb. And he realized, and when he got Ryan Grubb, you kind of hear, stories in spring.
I think that's
spring.
Arguably a bigger addition from Ryan Grubb than what he will do with from an X's and O's standpoint.
The good cop, bad cop. It is strictly that of, Kalen DeBoer has to deal with everything. He can't just focus on just one position play. He's like, I got to have the trust that my guys, my staff is going to get this thing done and move it forward. And I think a lot of that showed in Alabama and the way they changed. They had the highs and lows because physically you never once questioned that Alabama did not have the talent on the football field to get it done. It was, why are we starting off slow against Vanderbilt? Why are we starting off slow? How are we starting off so explosive against Georgia, but then have that dud against, like a Tennessee of the world? Because, again, week to week, you have to have that clean slate. Last week was last week. This is a new week. Because Lane Kiffin is a prime example of that. How can you be the more physical team against Georgia and then absolutely get, Florida beat the brakes off of you?
So do you think that can work in the sense of, you have a locker room full of players and like last year, and we were just talking about with Alabama, and it's more of a, I'm going to take the hands-off approach. I'm going to trust that we want you to be a part of this program because we believe that you're going to do what you need to do to get prepared every week. Do you think that can work? Or do you think that leaving, I guess, the accountability, leaving that responsibility in the players' hands too much can be a problem? Especially, and I do think it is worth saying, I think that's a bigger problem now than it used to be because of NIL and all these different things. I think it is harder to keep kids focused and accountable for themselves than maybe it was 10 years ago or certainly longer ago than that.
Player leadership is a little bit different from the head guy. I think when Nick Saban, and it just hit me. Think about the two moments that we kind of saw a little something different that we had never seen before from Alabama players. Like, think about how we talk about Reuben Foster, the C.J. Mosleys, and, Dante Hightowers, Rolando McClains. They would handle their business between the whistle. But think about Malachi Moore last year at the end of Vanderbilt.
Yeah, losing is cool.
Would he have ever done that with Nick Saban on the sideline?
No, I don't think so.
And think about in the Iron Bowl, that little scuffle there on the sideline. That would not have happened if Nick Saban was still. And I believe in 100% facts that Nick Saban would not allow that to happen at all. Like, that wouldn't have even crossed their mind because their mindset was, we can do the damage between the whistles. Like, we will take your head off the legal way between the whistles. Anything
so
after
we don't
that,
need to take our frustration out after the whistle.
right. Because to me, I think that was more of a reflection of where the leadership was amongst everybody, where it's like, okay, now we ain't, we like the tenacity, we appreciate your competitor, but do it within the legal means. You can handle your business between the legal means. And I think that's where I started to have a little question mark, like, okay, Malachi Moore's been there for 5 years. He's a captain. If Nick Saban was still there, he would have not have done that because Nick Saban would have handled him probably in a way that we were just like, man, he does not care. Like, it is whoever is the backup, you are now the starter now. Like, it is, we going to handle that. But we would have never gotten to that point because he would have handled his business between those white lines during the actual play. And I think that a lot of players, especially now in this generation, they think like, crashing out is just cool. Like, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not. No need to show your ass like in this situation. And a lot of them just think it's Diego Pavia in his last interview with the Bussin' with the Boys. It kind of showed me kind of where he is mentally. Now, I've never seen a Vanderbilt player have that mentality before, but
he maybe needs to, take a step back.
Right. Like, there's levels to this. Like, there's just levels. Like, you can be confident. I love my quarterback to know, like, man, I got you, big dog. But there's a way of, I can see it on the field that Matt Corral you may have thrown 3 interceptions, but he threw for 400 yards because he thinks he can make every throw on the field. He didn't have to tell me. He showed me. Whereas Diego Pavia is a little bit of both. Like, he has to tell you, but you also have that sense of, let me see it. Like, let me see it. But then they also lost to Georgia State. So it's, okay, you can have those highs and beat in Alabama, but then you lose to Georgia State. And it's like, okay, so where are you? And Clark Lee doesn't strike me as a guy that's kind of a pushover. Like, he seems more militant in his approach of, no, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to go. If you don't like it, go on. But he also had to adjust we got a little bit of a little different breed down here at quarterback now.
Yeah, and that's the, and again, those are the guys that, again, I don't think he's anywhere near as good as like a Baker Mayfield kind of player, right? But it reminds me of that kind of an attitude, right? Of like, yeah, I'm going to let you hear it, and I'm going to go out there and handle my business. And, it's just different when it's, a guy that's the quarterback at Vanderbilt as opposed to somewhere like Oklahoma, for example. But, yeah, I just think the mental aspect of the game is so interesting now with, because we're, and even for us, we're about to be 30 years old. And so we're not old, but, I don't feel like I relate to the kids that are going in college now. Like,
right.
The way that they carry themselves and their mentality and what they're looking for. Like, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I don't understand. It's completely different than when we were, in high school and in college and things like that. And it's just another facet of being a college football head coach that I have to imagine is probably frustrating more often than not.
And I always think, and I kind of look back and just kind of look at teams and, you hear the cliche that the team takes the identity of the head coach. And I think last year, Alabama, they had, it kind of was a little bit of both because you saw some of the, Amari Niblack, when after they lost to Texas.
And he was doing the freaking TikTok, whatever.
That's when I was like, that's now kind of looking back on it. It's like, yeah, these kids are a little bit different.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
And then I kind of look at,
he had a great year at Texas last year, by the way.
Did he? He got on the field?
That was tongue in cheek.
Oh, I was about to say, I got to pull the tape on that. I don't remember Amari Niblack having that.
He had a little bit less productive season than Isaiah Bond.
Okay. And again, like I look at some of the years, kind of looking at a lot of these different teams, I think of when I talk about identity, and I look at, even last year with Alabama, where there was still some Saban in them, but it's almost like a lot of them kind of let their hair down a little bit. Like they were like, man, finally we got the sheriff off our back.
It felt like they had a substitute teacher last year.
That's the best way to put it.
Right.
That's the best way to put it.
Like, you still have to do what's required of you, but
Mm-hmm.
you can probably cut some corners along the way and you're not going to get called out for it.
And think about how many times we saw Nick Saban, slam a headset or lose his cool. And everybody was kind of wondering, does Kalen DeBoer even have it in him to do it?
I think we saw it like one time.
Right. And Billy Napier, he was another guy that I was like, for Florida to have had Steve Spurrier, Urban Meyer, Dan Mullen, you can count on, a couple hands how many times you've seen them absolutely blow up. And there was one time against Tennessee when Billy Napier absolutely lost it. And I was like, okay, he's got it in him. And think of how we had discussions. Exactly. Like we have seen them absolutely break stuff.
Yep.
And we knew Coach O down at LSU, he had it in him. Even when they were up by 50, he'd still lose it. He had some fun with the players, but he ran that thing like he needed to. But even Brian Kelly, like he loses his mind at random times.
He just loses his mind in the press conferences, and we get great memes from it.
Right. Like each coach has their, I guess, identity, but how much of it does it roll off on the players? And I kind of look at Ole Miss a little bit like Lane Kiffin. They got a little bit more pizzazz.
It's just a very interesting dynamic, I feel like, with him and his players.
It is.
But it seems to work.
Yeah, and Shane Beamer, another one. He's, think about that little beef between Mark Stoops and Shane Beamer we had a couple years ago. He's like, no, we have culture. Like, we got it. Like, we got it here. Don't worry about us. Like, y'all are basketball school anyway. So what you worried about what we doing in the locker room? We having fun with my guys, but also they respond when we need them to on a consistent basis.
I was about to say, I feel like nowadays to be a college football coach successfully, you almost have to be corny in some ways when it comes to how you relate to the players and the things that the things that you do that maybe make older people go, that's weird, but that's how you endear yourself with 18 and 19-year-old kids, and you feel like you can get on a more level playing field and have real conversations with them. So it's just different.
It is.
It is. And it's, I'll be the first to say it. Even I know our listeners feel that, a lot of them don't like it. Even people like we're on the younger side of things, and it's weird for us too, but it's the reality of the situation, and you adapt or get left behind.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. You get a chance to hop on the text line, the phone lines as well. You can also get a chance to own that dream home at the lake tomorrow, Saturday, June 21st, at the grand opening at the Cottages at Smith Lake, located at one of America's most pristine lakes. At the Cottages at Smith Lake is the area's first and only tiny home community on 50 acres of woodlands at the peaceful, quiet west side of Smith Lake, surrounded by the Bankhead National Forest. Over 120 home sites to choose from, each with beautiful lake views and your choice of a custom cottage from 6 unique models. The Cottages at Smith Lake is a beautifully planned community with amenities like gated access, boat ramps, community docks, saltwater swimming pools, lakefront picnic areas, walking trails, and more. It's all walkable and golf cart friendly. Don't miss your chance for your perfect lake cottage at the grand opening tomorrow, presented by Joseph Carter Realty. Come out and enjoy catered food, live music, and golf cart tours of home sites. That's opening day at the Cottages at Smith Lake tomorrow, June 21st. You can still reserve your spot now, or you can call them at 256-747-7459. That's 256-747-7459. Or go to their website, thecottagesatsmith.com. We'll continue with the conversation on the other side. Keep it locked right here on Jox. Welcome back into McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian, Conrad, and John here with you, having some fun. Didn't think we were going to take this turn. Shout out to Larry for getting into the mental aspect of the game now.
Yeah, it was a great call.
It really was, man. And kind of just reflecting and kind of just looking back at, my playing days and just, okay, now I think about it. Yeah, like it really does come. There is a real strong mental component that comes with it. And when you look at some of these athletes and some of these players now, and Cole and Greg, they talk about stories of just, where they are mentally. It's just, wow, the game has really changed. It really has. I mean, we don't question their, physical abilities, because this is probably the best pure athlete we've seen in a long time. I mean, you got the likes of, a couple years ago, Derrick Henry and stuff. Like, he's the brother's 6'3".
Jeremiah Smith's the greatest football player of all time.
Right. He came into
19 years old.
Right. Ryan Williams. I mean, like, again, I will say, even from a receiver's perspective, when he starts to hone in of just truly being a receiver and not just like baking it on his athletic abilities, he is going to be an absolute animal. And also think of the guys that they've kind of, quote unquote, looked up to, like the Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons of the world. And the older I get, the more I'm kind of like, when I watch football now, especially the NFL, I keep forgetting these guys are younger than me. Like Justin Jefferson just turned 26 a couple days ago. And I'm like, man, I feel like he's been in the league for a long time. And some of the things that he was used to do in college and things that he does in the NFL, I'm like, whew. And then I look at what Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smiths of the world, I'm like, whew. Maybe this is what getting older kind of feels like. You realize, like, yeah, I got out at the right time.
Yeah, maybe so. And I also think, it's cool, particularly with those two guys and some other ones where with everything we're talking about, right? I think those are two good examples of guys, we don't know them personally, but from everything that we know about them, right? They don't seem to maybe have as much of, going to the mental aspect of it, that entitlement and things that so many other people have, especially, a guy like Ryan Williams who, at times kind of disappeared in the second half of last season. Now, part of that's because he was a freshman and part of that's because, he had a quarterback that couldn't get him the football accurately. But, those are the kinds of kids that, would it be frustrating? Yes, but I think you can maybe understand better than most if they were, hey, this is my list of demands, meet them or I'm hitting the portal, I'm out, see you later. And that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, granted, they're making a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it is still cool when you get players like that you can tell just have, they have a different, level of maturity about them. And like even last year, getting to hear more about, guys like Riley Leonard and like how they, grew up and how they carry themselves and things. It is, we talk so much about, man, the kids these days, and it's just so different. And it is, but there are still good examples of people that have the right, not only the physical abilities, but the right mentality, the right level of maturity to go along with it. It's, maybe just not quite as common, unfortunately.
It is. 205-834-9450. Your text messages, your calls, always welcome here on Jox. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's talk to our buddy. Man, long time no talk. Our buddy Poe wants to talk about
What's
these
up,
kids
Poe?
and coaches nowadays. What's going on, Poe?
Man, that Damian, Mitch, and Conrad. Yeah, no, man, I be listening to y'all every morning. It's just that I just don't call in like I should. But two things, man, y'all doing all right? First of all, y'all doing all right?
Man, you know what?
Yes,
Can't
sir.
complain about
Yes,
a thing,
sir.
brother. Appreciate you asking.
Okay. Yeah. First off, we got a game 7 Sunday, so I'm glad about that.
Oh,
Indiana
yeah.
Pacers. I'm pulling for Indiana Pacers. I'm pulling for the Pacers, man. So, but hey, when y'all talking about coaches and lighting fire under the players, man, Jeff Levy from my Mississippi State Bulldogs. I wish he had something in him, cause man, my disappointing 2-win season. If I get a 10-win season, Conrad and Damian, that's like a national championship to a Mississippi State fan.
Yeah. Hey, but you will always, Poe,
Hey.
you will always be the first team to ever be ranked number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. No one can ever take that away from Mississippi State.
Yeah, you know what? People tell me that all the time. They tell me that all the time. Hey, that's true.
It
But
is.
yeah, no. And that's true, though. That's true. Because I know some friends of mine was talking about my team in Auburn, but they was like, yeah, but Poe team, they was ranked number 1 Auburn. Where y'all been? I was like, man, I can't say. But I can't say nothing, though. I mean, it's good, but at the same time, man, come on. Since number 1 in the college football playoff ranking when it first started to now, it's almost like, God dang, Jeff Levy, we got to do something, baby.
So do you think,
gotta do
what's your
something,
expectation for this year? So 2 wins last year. How many do you think they get this year?
Man, and looking at the schedule, man, give me all the out-of-conference games. I hope they go undefeated all the out-of-conference. And man, I give me if I'm 8, I'm good because that's a bounce back with a bowl game. I'm a Mississippi State fan, so I got to settle for what I can get, dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
I'm just gonna keep it real. You know, I got to settle what I can get. I can get 6 and get a bowl game. I'm good. But it's just a thing that Kevin Barber, that's the offensive coordinator, and Mississippi State, they just got to do something. You in the SEC, dude. Ain't no way in the world you're supposed to be getting beat from these out-of-conference dudes like this. You know what I'm saying? But, hey, it's your boy Poe, man. I love y'all. I love Jox Morning, Jox, and everybody that's out there. I'm going to try to get to the taco place, me and my son, to see y'all. And my boy Dun.
Oh, yeah.
I love all y'all guys. Man. But, hey, Mississippi State, boy, Jeff Levitt, I need you to get hot and heated under them guys and give me at least a 10-win season. I'm out, man.
Hey, Poe, we appreciate
Thank
you, man.
Poe. Poe's the one, isn't he the one that turned around Grant Nelson's season?
Yes. Yeah. He's like, hey, listen, he one game away. He got it in him. And sure enough, Grant Nelson turned up. He did.
We need more Poe on our airwaves, but unfortunately for him, I don't see 6 wins on Mississippi State's schedule. But yeah, sure, you know, Southern Miss, Alcorn State, Northern Illinois. Hey, Northern Illinois did beat Notre Dame last year, so maybe not a just saying, not a gimme there. Arizona State, okay, can maybe win that one, but I mean, you don't.
Could they?
I mean, I feel. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I think, you know, the positive spin would be I think they double their wins or can double their wins, but that just means you're going from 2 to 4.
But you're trending upward regardless.
You are headed in the right direction.
And that's good. But I mean.
But the question is, can you win a game in the SEC? Because if you're 2 years in and you're 0-16 in SEC play, I like Jeff Lebby. I think we both agree that he's a good offensive mind, but
yeah,
we don't need to start having Chad Morris comparisons being made.
Oh boy,
don't think anybody wants that.
And it's so unfortunate for Mississippi State too, because they shouldn't be in this position that they're in. It's just like these years are under some of just the worst conditions because of Mike Leach's.
It's very unfortunate. Yes,
and then I don't think Zach Hartnett was ever ready to be a head coach anyway, and then now you're trying to go back to the air raid type, and it's the filling out process is just going to be tough. And like I said, man, I think that the system that they have can work. And Blake Shapen, getting hurt, it's we hadn't seen them at 100% since Mike Leach's death. Essentially, it just really hasn't been put back together. And that way, I mean, back then you could also hang your hat on some of the defensive players that you had as well those years, and now you don't have. It's just going to take some time.
It is.
It's just going to take some time. We got some more text messages coming in. David from Coleman, he says Auburn will not get handled by anyone. War damn Eagle. I'm thinking 9-3 at worst, 8-4. They will have two top 20 picks, and Xavier and Keldrick. Offensive line will be great, and running back will be by committee.
Okay, so he said 9-3 is worst case.
Yeah, at worst 8-4.
Oh, okay.
At worst 8-4. But I look at Auburn, and that's realistic. I wouldn't be surprised if 8-4 were to happen. It's just I had the same thoughts last year, and honestly, I had the same thoughts the year before. Just I never thought it would be hard to get to 6 or 7. I thought it would be a little bit easier than what it was to get to 6 or 7. And last year you didn't even get 6. So it's man, Auburn is starting to get to where Texas A&M is. It's do it. Just do it.
Well, and we
need to see it.
And I think it's also hard to just. This is going to come off as mean, but just based on what we've seen over the last few years, it's hard to go in and say, "Oh yeah, they're going to win those games."
Right.
And that's the problem. And again, I'm not trying to be nasty towards Auburn, but that's just the reality of the situation. Is we can sit here and say on paper, boom, boom, boom through the schedule. Yeah, 8-4, 9-3. Yeah, on paper, I like these matchups for Auburn, but we said that about a number of games over the last couple of years, and they were L's. So it's hard to just definitively say, oh yeah, they're going to handle their business in these games. Should they handle their business? Yes. Do we expect them to handle their business? Yes. But will they? Hopefully, but it's not guaranteed.
Right. Because think about the head coach said this. The head coach said this after a loss to Arkansas. 9 times out of 10, we beat Arkansas. We beat that team.
Well, you're going to get a chance this year.
You get one. You get one. It ain't basketball where you get a return trip. It's you have that one game to get it done. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. So I think it's the same thing every single year because going into year one under Hugh Freeze, it's like, hey, let the chips fall where they may. It is what it is. There were games that you were competitive. There were games that you should have won. So be it. But then last year, it was you, Coach Freeze, doubled down on Peyton Thorne. That was your decision, and Auburn fans were rocking with it. And I was there for the Alabama A&M game. Again, the competition that was on the other side, yeah, it is what it is. But even I came away like, okay, if this Peyton Thorne plays like this, oh boy, like, okay, maybe I was wrong on Peyton. Let me see what happens. And then Cal comes. And it's, all right, okay, well, maybe we just iron some things out. And then Arkansas rolls around. It's, okay, y'all just ain't got a quarterback on the roster at this point.
Yeah.
And that's why you gut it, clean house.
Say that's why they're all gone.
And you feel me? But now you're also, again, it goes back to Jackson Arnold. We saw what happened with him when he was at Oklahoma. And it went downhill. And now it's, okay, if you're banking on another transfer quarterback to kind of rectify what's going on, you're going with a guy that was benched at his old school. At least Peyton Thorne was a bona fide starter at Michigan State, and he just came down and, wet the bed. But Jackson Arnold was benched at the school that he wanted to go to, and now he's at Auburn.
How about this? Someone texted in 205-834-9450 if you want to do so. Calling it now. Auburn will go 11-1, and they will either lose to Arkansas or Texas A&M.
Then how are they going 11-1?
Well, they're going to lose one of those games. Those are the only. They're going to beat Alabama. They're going to beat Georgia, but they're going to lose to either Arkansas or A&M and go 11-1.
See, that's where it's the same thing I had with the same discussion I had with Missouri last year. It's how can you tell me they're going to beat Georgia and Alabama, but they're going to fall to an Arkansas or Texas A&M? If they are beating Alabama and Georgia, they running the table. Like I mean,
no, because if Alabama can beat Georgia last year, why in the hell they lose to Vanderbilt?
Fair enough.
Yes, it stands to reason that, okay, if you're going to knock off the rest of that schedule, there's no way you can lose to that. Well, there's no way Notre Dame can play in a national championship game and lose to who was it, Northern Illinois or whoever they lost to. So, yeah.
Man.
Auburn's going to have a dumb loss like that. Yeah. Ole Miss had it last year. All these teams had it last year. Most teams cannot get out of their own way.
Yeah. That's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
We'll continue on the phone lines, text lines, 205-834-9450. Keep it locked here on Mac and Cube in the morning. Welcome back into McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian, John, and Conrad here with you.
What is this?
It's a Soulja Boy.
Yeah, but
half of it.
You know the dance.
But you know the other half.
You know it. Soulja Boy.
I just wasn't expecting the mashup.
It's a banger, dog.
It is.
Do you know the other half, Damien, or are you just vibing with it?
It sounds like Toxic by Britney Spears almost.
It's Succession.
Oh, the theme song.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
He's only seen 2 HBO shows, so he doesn't know.
I was saying.
What are they?
Game of Thrones and
Game
The
of
Wire.
Thrones and The Wire. Well, I mean, I watched Euphoria, too.
I'm sure you did. Why'd you watch that show?
Did you watch the show or did you watch clips?
No, I watched the show.
Oh, okay.
I watched the show.
All right.
Who's your favorite character?
Rue?
Is that Sydney Sweeney's character?
No.
That's Zendaya.
Although he said it with a question like, Rue?
Rue.
Okay.
I ain't never felt bad for a crackhead before, but like she was going through it, dog. But also, that high school was just insane. Like, that's just insane.
Well, you get to go back to it in a year or so whenever it comes back.
Yeah, hopefully they're in college. I hope it goes like I hope they actually age them out. Like, come on, man. Like, they cannot continue to go to high school.
Didn't Drake make that show, or he's like the...
I think he's like one of the producers or something. But it was crazy.
It's just kind of funny that...
No, I have seen another HBO show that got canceled, The Idol.
Oh, I didn't watch that one.
Okay.
Did not watch that one.
I'm noticing a trend.
Yeah,
it was brutal. It was brutal.
Someone has a type.
No, like I watched it for the weekend just to see how bad it was. Like
Sure
I was like, why do people hate it so much? Then I watched and I was like, I see. But the music was great though. Like, I mean,
yeah, the music.
You got Double Fantasy with him and Future. Ended up having Popular with him, Madonna, Playboy Cardi. Like the songs came out, I was like, okay, some bangers. But the show, woo.
I was about to say that's the good thing is I can listen to the music and not expose myself to the garbage show that it apparently was.
The show was bad. It was bad.
Did you watch the whole thing?
It was only 6 episodes.
Man,
I see why they canceled it. Yeah, I see why they canceled it. I was like, oh, this is bad.
I'm impressed.
It's absolutely awful. But
I'm sorry, that mashup just really threw me off. I was not expecting a Soulja Boy remix this morning, but I loved that. That was awesome.
Absolutely. And I will say, like, you go down those rabbit holes on TikTok with some of the DJs and stuff, like some of the mashups I never once thought I would hear just make it work. It sounds pretty good.
And now on Twitter, I guess it's like become a popular thing to take like a new song will come out and it'll be popular, like a rap song, and then they'll go, well, let's put it over this other beat from this other old song, and they do the mashups that way. And a lot of the times I'm like, actually pretty good. Like I would listen to this. Like
if you got an ear for it, the talent is
yeah, those people are very talented.
Oh my god.
No doubt.
205-834-9450. Let's continue on with the phone lines. Our buddy Hastings said he wants to talk Auburn today. Noted Alabama fan, Alabama alum, wants to talk about the other one. What's going on, Hastings?
That's right. And Secession was a great pick for this phone call because next year, if you don't clean it up, you'll be talking about who's going to be the successor to Hugh Freeze. Here's the deal. All right, here's my problem with Auburn, and I'm saying this as just as unbiased as I can possibly be. And I was sitting next to an Auburn fan at the SEC tournament in baseball, and he reminded me of Hugh's press conference that he had when he first got the job. And he said, if you remember, Hugh said that he turned Ole Miss around in 3 years, but with the transfer portal and NIL, he would do it faster with Auburn. That has not happened. He regressed. He wanted to make Peyton Thorne his starting quarterback last year, couldn't do it, made him the guy, only to bench him for Hank Brown in the one game that could get his confidence back. It's not a talent issue. It's a coaching issue. So, yeah, and you can say the same thing about Alabama. Alabama had talent last year, too. PFF, ranked number 2? Auburn is right there. And it's not that he can't recruit. It's when your coach sits there in a press conference after a loss and says, I forgot that we have Jarquez Hunter on our bench sometimes, and I forget to run the ball. What are you doing? And you tell me this is the guy who's going to lead you to the promised land, the same guy in recruiting season who's sitting there at Willow Point playing golf at Lake Martin during the recruiting season? Don't give me this. Hugh Freeze is going to turn it around. We're going 9-3, 10-2 this year. Hugh Freeze has not shown me anything, and it's not from a lack of talent. It's a lack of coaching and decision-making that he cost games last year that should have been won.
The Oklahoma game is on Hugh Freeze. I know Peyton Thorne threw the pass, but that pass play should never have been called.
Well, Conrad, here's the problem. He had an
opportunity in the offseason before last year to get another quarterback, and he did it. He said Peyton Thorne's the guy.
Yeah.
Then throws Hank Brown in there and makes poor decisions left and right. You had the best running back in the SEC last year.
Yep.
The absolute best. And you don't utilize them because you want to run a certain style of offense. To be a good coach, you have to play with the talent that you're given. Look, was Jalen Hurts the best quarterback that we've ever seen, or Jalen Milroe the best quarterback we've ever seen? No, but at least we tried to form a package around him. Hey, he's the best athlete we got on the field. Let's make something happen. And I'm not saying this is a shot. I hope Auburn succeeds. I want the Iron Bowl to mean something. I want it to be for the SEC championship like we saw in the past. But you have got to see some consistency in the decision-making as a head coach and as a play caller in order to get yourself to that point. So I hope they do good. But right now, I am not impressed with Hugh Freeze. He needs to focus, and this is a make-or-break season for him. And, yeah, they've got to beat Baylor, and I think they've got to beat Texas A&M. You can't fly with another 6-6, 7-5 season. That's not going to keep your boosters or your fans happy. So hopefully they can get it together, but all these Auburn fans who are optimistic, I hope it goes well. But until your coach shows me something, I just don't believe. So, hey, appreciate you guys taking my call. War Damn Eagle and Roll Tide.
He taking it out of my book, dog.
Ooh, I feel like, you check your pit stains, brother. You probably sweating after that one. That was
Jason was preaching, dog.
He sounded like an Auburn fan.
He really did. He did.
Sounded like an Auburn fan.
He's been hanging around, son.
Yeah, yes. That was a great call, Hastings.
It really was. Boy.
I think a lot of Auburn fans probably agree with a lot of what he just said.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. Let's keep it going. Your texts, your calls. Let's just have some fun, guys. I mean, this is it's been pretty fun. Keep it locked right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
8:51, welcome back in Mac and Cube in the morning. Conrad, Damian, and John Saber here with you, filling in for Greg and Cole. They'll be back on Monday. And, man, we've just been having talk about all college football. That's really all we've had time to get to today. And we've had a great conversation, a lot of great interaction on the text line, 205-834-9450. A lot of great calls so far. Hastings, a big Alabama fan, and he just came in here in the last segment and, I guess he did his best Don impression because, he damn near convinced me he's an Auburn fan and rooting for success for Auburn. And he's fed up with, the coaching miscues by Hugh Freeze. And, Hugh Freeze is overrated. And, man, it just kind of lightened the world on fire there. And based on some of our texts, Damian, I think there's maybe a few people out there that agree with our buddy Hastings and some of the things he just said about Coach Freeze and the Auburn Tigers.
Absolutely. 205-834-9450. You can text or call in there. Michael texted in and he says, because he beat Nick Saban twice is what he is living on the last 10 years. And I do agree with that same mindset. I said it when he got hired. I thought he was Gus Malzahn 2.0, except that he'll throw the ball more. Because when you look at Hugh Freeze's career, like he never – he beat Nick Saban twice, but he never played in Atlanta. Like, really and truly wasn't really close at any time because he always had some losses along the way that's like, oh, well, that just went downhill after you beat Bama one time.
All right, so Hugh Freeze has coached 56 games in SEC, like in SEC conference games at Ole Miss and Auburn. What do you think his record is? 56 games in SEC play.
I'm going to say he's won at least 30.
He is 24-32.
Are you serious?
That is his career record in SEC play.
Ouch.
Yep. He had 2 years at Ole Miss in 14 and 15. Those were his good years there. He went 5-3 one year, 6-2 the other year. Every other year in SEC play, he has had a losing record. So just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, because it's so hard. It's so hard to just like put all your chips behind him because of the fact that if he's never done it before, how do you feel like he's the one that can get you over the hump? Like, and I think that's where I have so many question marks because even if, say it does go to hell in the handbasket this year, in all honesty, where does Auburn go from here? Because you got rid of Malzahn after all those years because, the same old thing, same old result. You fired Brian Harsin 20 games into it. He's gone. And then Hugh Freeze, you're like, okay, we're waiting. And if it never materializes to anything, where do you go from here? Because then it looks at, like, if I'm a head coach and I look at the Auburn program, I'm like, man, do I really want to be in there with all this pressure? Because
yeah, I was about to say, if this doesn't happen in 3 years, I'm gone. Granted, I would look at it like, oh, buyout? Sweet. Yeah, I'll take the job.
Right. Like, yeah, if y'all hand out all that money, like,
I'll
okay.
Take the job.
Come on, but think about this. Gene Chizik has the national championship.
Mm-hmm.
He was 5-19. That's what I remember. Like he was 5-19.
He also went 3-9 one year, but
he was 5-19 heading into the Auburn job, and everybody's like, "Who? What?" But he also had Cam. He got Cam Newton there, which is why you hired Gus Malzahn back as the head coach after you fired Gene Chizik, and after about a decade, you're like, "Oh, all right, so this is the pinnacle of where we're going to be."
Hey, Gus took him to a national championship. Maybe it wasn't his. Maybe it was somebody else's players mainly because it was early in his time there. But, he did still take him to a national championship game. But, no, I just think with all the Hugh Freeze stuff, I think a lot of people – look, I get it. You want to be optimistic if you're an Auburn fan.
Right.
And I think you have reasons to be optimistic. But I also think, I guess the main point of this is just because, as bad as, Peyton Thorne may have been at times or Hank Brown when he got an opportunity, and as frustrating as all that stuff was – I think we're just trying to remind you that a lot of these issues come from the top down. And just because Jackson Arnold could go out there and look like a world beater, that doesn't mean that the coaching is going to match up with that, right? And so, while, yes, the players need to perform at a higher level, the coaching staff also needs to do that at the same time, because if you don't get both of those in, continuity, I don't think you're going to meet your expectations for this year.
Yeah. Somebody texted in and says, y'all forget he's a top 5 recruiter among head coaches. Says,
he's a great recruiter.
Right. he name another head coach who could recruit top 10 classes at Ole Miss and Auburn after 3 losing seasons. Auburn needed a roster after Gus and Harsin. But what has he done with it?
I was about to say, are you cool with having a great head coach that can recruit if it means you're going to win 6 games every year?
That means you got the talent, but
that makes it worse.
The product is what happens on the field. Like, you can get them there, great. But when is it going to equate to wins? We'll keep the conversation going. We'll see you on the phone lines. Keep it locked right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Hour number 3 here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Damian Mitchell, Conrad Van Order, John Saber filling in for the guys, having some fun. Are we having fun? I don't know. Like, if you're an Auburn fan,
I'm having fun.
Me too.
Hastings was having fun.
He was. Hastings, he was preaching to the choir. But just recapping what we talked about, hour 1, kind of looking at some make or break games for some teams in the SEC. And then, we started talking about the mental side of just where these athletes are with coaching and some of the players, just how they're responding. Just, again, we were the old men of the crew there for a little bit. We kind of went down memory lane. It's like, whoa, even we don't relate to these youngins. They're a little different. They're a little different.
Just a little bit.
But how it, God almighty, what is that? It's like a pterodactyl.
Oh, that must have been the thing that was crawling on the glass a second ago.
God almighty.
It looked like a granddaddy long leg combined with like a cockroach almost. Yeah. It was kind of freaky looking. Oh, God. Now it's coming over here after me. All right, I got it. We're good.
Jesus. Well,
we're the exterminators now.
We are. We are indeed. 205-834-9450. I've been having some conversations. I guess now we're looking at just where's Auburn's mental? Like, now we're in Auburn's mental space. Like, where are they at in 2025? But we can go to the phone lines having some fun. Let's go to Steven in Birmingham wants to talk about Auburn. What's going on this morning, Steven?
Oh, not much. So, if Auburn wants to be a contender or wants to be relevant, they've got to do something that they hadn't done in a long time, like 35 years, and that's have 2 back-to-back 10-win seasons. 88 and 89 was the last time that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you want to be with the Alabamas and the Tennessees and all that stuff like that, you kind of have to win your ball games.
Yep. But how do they do it, man? Like, how do they get over the hump?
I'm an Alabama fan. I have no idea how they do it. So,
You're probably glad. You probably don't want them to figure it out, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter to me. So, now, my wife, on the other hand, and my father-in-law, it probably matters to them. But I mean, it's just, you got to, the only reason they hired you is because they beat Alabama at Ole Miss. And, there's lots of coaches who have beat Alabama. That doesn't mean they're relevant in anything, haven't done anything. But, and yeah, I understand you beat Saban. I get it. But still, every time you beat Saban, you come back and you've got a different offense with Lane, or you got this, or you got that. So, it doesn't have. It's very hard to beat somebody twice. Ask LSU, ask all these teams that Bama played, and it didn't happen. But then again, like y'all said, you got to play with who you have, because trust me, I became an alcoholic last year watching Alabama play. The Oklahoma game, my wife, when my wife and I were dating, our first Iron Bowl was to kick 6.
Oh, wow. No.
Wow.
Yeah, she's like, I still have the shirt from that game. I said, yeah, it's a collector's item to y'all. Y'all don't get them very often.
Oh, so your wife is an Auburn fan?
Oh, yeah. My wife and father-in-law are both Auburn fans.
Oh, yes. All right, house divided.
And I grew up in Montgomery, so everybody's like, why are you an Alabama fan? Because I'm smart. I have smart parents. But, one year for Christmas, my brother gives me an, Alabama pullover, and it's got the little silver swoosh on it and everything. I said, you know what that means? So that's a playoff edition. I said, that's something else. That's strike 2. You ain't getting that either. So, and I've kind of mellowed out. I don't do that as much now, 10 years in, but, it's nice to jab a little bit every once in a while.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah. Like, when she got my tag last week and got my Alabama tag, she's like, that was hard for me to do. I said, well, got to feel like a winner sometime.
That's true love right there, man.
That's right.
Oh, man. We appreciate you, Steven. Right. Good to hear from you, man. Roll Tide? What's that?
You were wearing the shirt.
I was just making sure. I was making sure if I was allowed or not.
Yeah, you're wearing the shirt. I guess so.
Have you committed?
No.
Then you're not allowed.
Well, see, that's what I said.
No.
Well, so this morning I said, you're going to lead people astray because they're going to tune in and see you wearing the Alabama thing. They're going to go, man, we missed it. Damien already committed. So now you're leading people astray.
Just imagine, this is the equivalent of me posing in the uniform like other recruits. We're just taking pictures, and it's just a photo shoot.
Okay, this is just a photo.
Yeah, it's just a photo shoot.
Okay. Then why are you questioning whether or not to say Roll Tide? If it's just a photo shoot, photos don't have words.
Because I didn't know if this was the safe environment to say it.
So if you were a recruit and, whatever, you're going to all these different schools in the SEC, would you say their slogan, whatever, their Roll Tide, War Eagle, gig 'em, would you say that?
One of those I would not. I want Dad. No. But
when you're doing your pictures,
if I'm around the coaches, yeah.
Well, then I guess that means you can say it.
Thanks. Thank you. Roll Tide. Feels good. Let's go to BB.
You should try it on permanently.
What's going on this morning, BB?
Good morning, guys. I just wanted to give a shout out to Hastings, my on-air buddy. We're going to have the BB and Hastings show go on the road in August.
Oh, y'all killed it on Pat Ponders the other day. Y'all did a great job.
He's going to do the stats, and I'm going to do the color commentary.
There we go.
I just want to make a comment on Coach's demeanor. I mean, I grew up in the days of Woody Hayes and watching. Excuse my breath. I'm on the bike right now.
On the
I
grind.
respect the dedication. Yeah, BB.
Oh yeah, every morning. So yeah, we watched Woody Hayes. I mean, he would slap players and haul them off the field, and I want a little confrontation on the sidelines. I want to see the coaches rage. I want to see, animation. Let's get busy. Let's show emotion. Well, I mean, break something. You got to do it. It's just, I hate it when we're watching a game and they're just sitting there like they're a damn statue and they have no emotion. I don't know. I find that entertaining, and I miss it when we don't have it. I loved it with Saban because we, could watch him break 3 headsets in a game. It was just so cool.
Yeah, when they were winning by 30 points. Yeah.
Yeah, when they're winning by 30 points and he's still breaking 3 headsets. No, I for one miss when, and I don't know if it's all politically correct, HR kind of crap anymore, but it just seems like some of the coaches, they're just not, they don't look like they're in it. I know they're in it in their mind, but damn, I want to see them rip their T-shirts off. Do something. Just do something.
Whoa.
Get in it. Well, not some of them don't need to be taking their T-shirts off. Don't get me wrong. But, don't accost a player. Don't get ugly that way. But show your emotion. Just give us something to go, watch this guy. I mean, I loved Coach O about that. Remember the guy that was his pullback guy on the sideline?
Oh, yeah.
Constantly trying to keep him back so he doesn't get fined or, lose yardage because he's out on the field the whole time. That's the kind of emotion I love to see in college football, but that's just me. Anyway, I would just want to tell you guys, I will text or call in to the morning show, but only if you two are hosting.
Okay, well, thank you, BB.
We
appreciate it.
Listen to you.
Well, thank you, BB.
Have a great day.
Yeah, we love you. Appreciate you. We'll see you on Tuesday at Social Taco. Yeah, kids are sensitive now. They don't like being
right.
But see, here's the thing that kills me about that though is you can look back at the proof is in the pudding, right? And those types of programs like Alabama football, like how Bill Belichick ran things in New England. I know those are few and far between, but those are the programs that get results. And I think that's what frustrates a lot of people is we have so much evidence of this hard-nosed style of coaching is what gets the best results, but people don't want to go through the pain and the struggles of that to get the reward on the other side. And that's what's frustrating is this is the right path for a lot of kids. Mm-hmm. They just don't want to do it. Yeah.
And that's where the transfer portal, NIL, like how can you as a head coach or a coordinator looking at a guy that's, making $1 million and like scream at him and make him, he's 18 and he feels as though like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm the one getting paid. So, if you don't like it, I'll just hit the transfer portal. Some coaches like, I love the way that Tennessee, Josh Heupel and Nico situation went. And Josh Heupel like, bye. Like you want how much? All right, cool. We'll see you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate everything you did for us. We're not paying you that. We'll go on about your merry way. And I think that a lot of these players, a lot of them, they hadn't been checked. Like
I was about to say, a lot of them haven't been told no at any point in their life. Right. Because when you're growing up, if you're a 5-star kid and you're being recruited by, Georgia and Texas and Alabama and Auburn and all these different places, guess what? You were the hot shot in whatever nook of the world you're coming from or the country. Like you were the dude. And now you're going somewhere where maybe you're not the dude anymore. And that is a big reality check for a lot of people. And that's a difficult adjustment to make. Ego that's a very real thing that a lot of people have to find a way to, manage that. And we have seen a lot of examples, especially recently, of guys that can't manage that.
Yeah. We'll continue on the phone lines, 205-834-9450. Our buddy Deacon riding with us this morning. What's going on this morning, Deacon?
Yeah.
What's going on, gentlemen?
How's the Vanderbilt hole coming?
Well, see, you made that comment at the end of the call yesterday after I was already hanging up, and I just want you to know I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings so bad telling Damien I was going to buy him a Roll Tide onesie.
It's okay, Deacon. I forgive you. I slept on it, and we're on good terms now.
Well, if he rolls with Bama, I'm going to buy you matching Roll Tide onesie.
Yeah, all right. That's what I'm talking about. No pressure, Damien.
Now, I enjoyed Hastings' call and I will agree with him. You can only do so much if the coach makes the wrong call. I love Nick Saban. To me, he's the second greatest coach in the history of the game. Real close, 1A and 1B, actually. But I have not seen a player wasted more than Jarquez Hunter besides maybe O.J. Howard at Alabama. I think Saban completely wasted O.J. Howard. But Hunter got completely wasted. Now, day 3. Bringing Damian to the Tide train. Damian, I just want you to know that if you join us in heaven down here at Tuscaloosa, when you come to the game, I am offering you, we'll meet up. I'll buy you and Conrad's meal. I want to take you to Dreamland, get you some of that good old Roll Tide ribs Big John used to make. And as far as talking about kids who are spoiled nowadays, my head football coach, I graduated in 1984. My head football coach started coaching my football team in 1951. Ooh. He didn't quit until 92. My mama was the organist in my church, and he was a deacon at my church, so I got away with nothing. And the things he said on the sideline, when that man got to heaven, he had a little repenting to do. They're just spoiled. They can't take it. Now, also,
was it effective,
thing,
though?
I'm sorry I'm taking so long. Sir?
Was it effective, the screaming and yelling on the sideline?
It was very effective.
Yeah, I bet it was.
It was very effective. We were just scared to come off the field if we didn't do right.
I'm telling you. That's the way it should be.
I was scared to go to church. I was scared to go to church if I didn't give 110% because he was telling Mama at choir practice. Now, one more thing y'all will never do on one of my calls. Hastings had a great call. One thing you will never do is at the end of my call say he sounded like an Auburn fan. I guarantee you. Because I will tell you this. Now, I pull for Auburn every single week. I do. Because my nephews are huge Auburn fans. They went to Auburn. Their daddy's an Auburn legacy. They're huge Auburn fans, and I love my boys like they're my own. However, like I tell them, I want you to win every game. I literally do pull for you every game. I will not say WDE. Those colors I will not put on unless it's at a party sending you to college and I had to go to the hospital and have the boils removed after I did that. However, I want you to go undefeated until the Iron Bowl, and then I want to put my boot on your neck and crush your dreams and watch your heart explode. That's what I'm talking about. So, yeah, you'll never say never I'm an Auburn fan after one of my calls. Conrad, you're getting your onesie.
Thank you, Deacon.
I'm making room if you say it again. If you say Vanderbilt and one in the same sentence, if you say 2 in a row again, I'm making room for you in my backyard dugout because when y'all do come and I buy you dinner, you're getting kidnapped and going to the dugout. Y'all have a great day, fellas.
You too, man. Deacon.
You know what's wild now is that that were to happen, that if Auburn's 11-0 and facing Alabama and Iron Bowl, and that's their one loss, they're probably, if not meeting again in the SEC championship weekend, they're both making the play, or at least Auburn's making the playoff at that point. Yeah. So you can stomp on their neck and everything, but you probably got to see them again. So
yeah, we may need to revise that now, Deacon. So you want Auburn to win 9 games a year. And lose to Alabama and 2 others.
Going into the Iron Bowl, so that way.
Exactly. Just to really make sure that we're safe there. Yeah, that's
man.
That was a great call, though. I love Deacon, man. He's been great addition to the callers over the last couple of weeks.
So look at you. Like now you're involved in some of my recruiting, man. We could go.
I want the onesie, so make it happen.
We can go. We can actually go to the Oklahoma-Alabama game together.
I think I would rather go to a different game, but
why not, man? You love John Mateer. You already put him in the Heisman Trophy. He's going to be in New York, and then you already have Oklahoma going to the college football playoff, and you're an Alabama alum. Like,
but if you choose LSU, why would you go to the Oklahoma-Alabama game?
That is true. Just to see, get a good.
No, I mean, if you're going to be all in on the fan, like, you can't be going to the enemy's game. You're not Counter Stallions out here scouting or nothing.
Saber's right.
Dang. But they do have LSU before Oklahoma.
And it's in Bryant-Denny.
Man.
Yeah, whatever team you choose, you can't be out here gallivanting the other stadiums and stuff. I mean, I know you got your Sanford duties, but if you have a weekend off or something, you can't be
can't just go watch ball?
No.
Dang.
No.
Well, let me take that back. You can't go to the stadium. You can stay at home and watch it.
Oh, well, yeah, of course, yeah.
Dang.
Yeah,
but if you choose Tennessee, you can't go watch the Iron Bowl. No.
Man.
What Tennessee fan would want that?
Yeah, so you either have to pick.
What if I'm invited? Like, what if, like...
No. That's when you say, thanks for the invite, but I am a fan of this program, and I'm not doing that.
Why would I do that? No, thank you. Yeah.
That's tough.
What do you mean it's tough? That's what real fans do. It's not that hard.
Man, this is tough, man.
There's no hard about this, Conrad. What game did you go to? You went to see Auburn and Oklahoma, right?
No, that would be Alabama and Oklahoma.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you followed your team.
So do postseason games count though? So like if I get an invitation to a college football playoff and none of my teams are playing, I can still go.
No, you can't go because you should be so disgusted that your team's not in there that you don't want to.
You said you would rock with them all football season. Postseason is still part of the season, therefore does not count.
Yep.
So so man, that's tough.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
So you tell me
you tell me if the Saints don't go to a Super Bowl and somebody invited you to go to the Super Bowl with them, you wouldn't go.
If the Falcons are in it, no, but the Falcons will never be in it again. So yeah, I probably would. It's different.
Okay, I got it. Man, this is tough.
I'll tell you what. The exception to the rule is you can always go to College Station for any reason. If you ever,
that's allowed, right,
that one's allowed. That's the one exception. If you ever want to go to College Station, more than happy to let you do that. None of us will be joining you, but you are welcome to go.
That seems like a punishment.
Yes, it does, and that is why that is the one that is allowed.
Speaking of which, does that mean you're not cheering for your boy Bucky?
Oh, that's a good point. Or is basketball different?
Literally, you said you can't. I mean, I know,
but you're such a big Alabama basketball fan that you couldn't. You couldn't do
that's
that.
what it is. Okay, all right.
Huge Alabama basketball.
Okay, all right.
Been rocking with them since the Wimp days, dog.
Yeah, since like 2023.
Since Wimp was on Mac and Cube last week, right? Yeah, okay.
That's funny. 205-834-9450. We got some text messages coming in. Your calls always welcome. We'll discuss. Basically, I guess I got to make a decision at some point, but I didn't.
Yes, at some point a decision.
All of a sudden, it got real.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm just gonna choose my fandom, but I can still go to. No. Like,
so you didn't think about the consequences that come with you deciding on the fan base.
Literally, you're calling this your commitment, right?
Yeah.
Well, what is a commitment? Like, if you get married, I can still go hang out with these other girls, right? No. You chose this one girl. That's the one you're committed to.
That's tough.
But babe, like, it's third Saturday in October. I want to. You're my man now. Where are you going? Sorry, son.
Dang, dog.
Mm-hmm.
We'll keep the conversation going on the other side. Keep it locked right here on McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
Friday morning, 9:23. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Conrad, Damian, and John Saber here with you as we continue to get a lot of your thoughts. So many great texts that we have left to get to. The calls have been great this morning. Just college football conversation. We talked about some make or break games for teams around the SEC. We got to dive into kind of the mental side of it. And now here we are kind of going down the Auburn rabbit hole. And
it just hit you, didn't it, Damian?
It did.
A lot of people, what?
The song.
Oh, you didn't realize it was the Imperial March thing from Star Wars?
Hey. And then I'm like, wow. That's wild.
The only thing that would make this better is Soulja Boy, so maybe there's one of those. But
that's only ever been said once in the entire existence of humanity.
No, I know that. No, these mashups are awesome. Where are these? So who makes these?
It's just, I don't know, random people on TikTok. There's one dude I just follow. He's a DJ, but also an influencer or whatever, and has a bunch of just things like it's like the one I sent you, which I might play later. Is like, hey, you're the bride and groom at a wedding, and you like The Office, and then you hear one song, and then you just morph it into another song. Oh,
yeah,
okay, I like this.
No, these mashups are no, keep them coming. These are awesome here. But we do want to remind you quickly that a long summer of heat and humidity are ahead. Just look at the forecast for next week. So you need to keep your home comfortable with a Trane, America's most reliable HVAC brand, and this deal runs out today. Today, last day to take advantage of this, but they are offering up to 10-year warranties on parts and labor for select home comfort systems. To learn more about this outstanding offer and to find a specialist near you, go visit Trane.com today.
We continue with your text messages coming in, 205-834-9450. Bobby texts in and says, we need to get Damian down to Baton Rouge for a game. Once that happens, nowhere else will compare. Also, I know Damian loves wide receivers since that's the position he plays, so why not pull for the real wide receiver that produced 4 of the top 6 receivers in the NFL last year? Oh,
that's a really good point. It does feel like LSU or Alabama should be your options because those are in terms of wide receiver talent, that would be the two you would go to.
They're 2 of 10.
But you do realize that, like he's saying here, if you become an Alabama fan, you can't go to Baton Rouge for a game.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't never been, so it's all good.
You're not worried about going?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah. But unless I choose LSU, then
it just really seemed, to me and Saber, like it, that last segment, the reality of the pressure that is on your shoulders right now seemed to really hit you. Because, it's been fun, and it's a fun thing as you're trying to, figure out who you want to root for. But now, it
added a level.
Oh, I got to root for him.
Yeah.
It added a different, level of stress. It really kind of hit me a little bit.
So if you do, and I'm not, you're not making a decision right now, but let's say hypothetically you do stick with Alabama, and that's the team that you root for. What happens the third Saturday in October?
I want Alabama to win.
Okay.
And should they lose, you can't smoke one. It's a Heupel disciple. If
Yep.
Heupel's offense goes off.
Great point.
That will be the best breakdown of how Alabama lost that you will ever hear. That would be the best. I will dive all the way into it. It would hurt.
It would hurt? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You know me, I'm a big Alabama guy.
Basketball.
Yeah, of course. But Alabama football, too. And speaking of wide receiver, the last time I saw a receiver win the Heisman Trophy, he was wearing number 6, and he played for Alabama. You better believe
That's right.
Roll Tide.
He came after those Jamar whoever and Justin whatever and
whoever those guys.
No, they're pretty good.
Whoever those guys are.
They're really good.
Somebody texted in and says, okay, I heard John's Lee County comment. He is wrong. Tearing the heart out of my nephews twice a year sounds like a fantastic thing, LOL. I think he sounded butthurt, though. Give him my apologies. If Damian rolls with the Tide instead of the onesie twins, I'll make it the onesie triplets. Tell Cole I won't be getting him one. Can't afford that much material.
I was about to say, you would need, a schmedium, and he would need, a 2X maybe?
Man, I don't know, man. I stepped on the scale a couple days ago. I might be leaning out that schmedium phase.
You might be going into the large phase?
Yeah, man.
Hey, it's okay. That happened for me a couple years ago. I started realizing,
actual adult small instead of a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, time to step it up.
Yeah, man. Stepped on the scale. I was like, whoa, I've never seen those 3 digits
You
before.
are almost 30.
I know, man.
You have to actually wear adult sizes now.
Oh, and the metabolism, it's starting to slow down. It ain't good. It ain't a good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't a good feeling. I get in the gym, I work out, and I'm like, whew. It's that last rep. I'm like, do I need this?
Do I need it?
I ain't preparing for nothing. I ain't training for nothing. I It might say 3 sets. Why not, do 2 and probably 5 on the last one instead of going to 12 or, 10.
I'll tell you what kicks my ass is me and one of my buddies, we'll go to the gym like maybe twice a week, and he loves the sauna. And so he wants to sit in the sauna after, like, we'll work out for 45 minutes and sit in the sauna for 20 minutes. No. Do you know how hard it is to sit in a sauna for 20 minutes? It's quite difficult.
Yeah, maybe about 10.
Yeah, exactly. After about 10, I'm like, are we, 10 more? Oh, okay.
Oh,
I guess. Yeah, no, that. Yeah, you want to feel old and yeah.
Man. Ernest texts in. He says, Damian, what did you smoke this morning before work? Some of your takes on the first hour were just gross and absurd. Then he says, saying you can see Oklahoma handling Auburn. These programs right now are so similar as far as where they are currently. I think if you say that, then you can turn it around and tab it for Auburn too. No, I think that, like, for Oklahoma, it's, again, like for Auburn, the quarterback that you have now got benched at Oklahoma, and he's going back to Oklahoma, the same place where he was a head case. And then you look at the quarterback you had the past 2 years in Peyton Thorne, he got benched too. Like, it's kind of just like the system. And I understand, like, you have the talent, no doubt about it. And I do agree that they are very similar, but you're also banking on a guy that's returning to the place where he got benched. Like, it's all eyes are going to be like, he's going to be the most hated man there. And think about the first interception that he throws in Oklahoma. And all the Oklahoma fans are going to look like, well, this is why we shipped him off anyway. And I think, not to say like handle him, I think that I can look at it as being one of those games where Oklahoma just pulls away.
Okay, so defensively, who do you think is better on paper? Auburn or Oklahoma?
Auburn. I'd say Auburn.
Okay, quarterback, I would go Oklahoma.
I would go Oklahoma with John Mateer.
I would go Oklahoma for running back.
Yes.
Auburn for wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive line, maybe a wash.
Yeah.
Fairly even. Okay, so there you have it. I think Oklahoma, you expect, and again, we know, right, if you have a better quarterback, that's typically going to, work in your favor. Again, none of this doesn't mean that Auburn can't go to Oklahoma and beat them by a couple of scores. It's just, for where you were coming from, it's Auburn going on the road, the mental aspect of the game. Oklahoma, in our opinion, at least, has a better quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They might be a little more, and you could see where for Auburn, there is some of that uncertainty of, especially what happens if you get in crunch time again like last year. And, are you going to have a coaching lapse or somebody that makes a bad decision with an errant pass or a fumble or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, I think, not to put words in your mouth, but I think that's more so where you were coming from with all that.
We had somebody else text in, and going back to the Hugh Freeze discussion, they were talking about him on the recruiting side of things as well. His first 5-star recruit is a projected top 10 pick, 3 first-rounders in the 2026 draft. Has no excuses this season. Freeze has only 2 full recruiting cycles on roster, got hired 2 weeks before National Signing Day the first year. Lane Kiffin has double the time at Ole Miss, yet gets half the hate, yet has won nothing. Look at his record versus top 10 teams. All that is true. All of that is true. He also says it's been 12 years since Auburn had a first-round offensive lineman. Freeze currently has an offensive tackle projected. And he also says Auburn's offense had a higher total offense than a 9-win Alabama team. Clean the turnovers up. But also in the game, like, what was the result in the game? Like, the numbers are great. 1,000%. Not going to knock you for that. But also the results have to match the product that's on the field. Like,
and also, does that not just make you more frustrated?
Right. Like, that's
okay, so we're doing a lot of things right, but we're still losing at a high rate. Like, it's not, oh yeah, we went 8-4 last year. We really missed on a game or two. It's
right.
We're talking about the last couple of years. You're talking 3, 4, 5 games a year that you're like, man, what happened?
Yeah, and I've said it for the past decade or plus. It's how many more years can Auburn say they're a quarterback away? Like, that's the
next year. Next year's the year.
At some point, it has to click and it has to work.
Yep.
But I just have my reservations on Jackson Arnold. Talent-wise, no ands, ifs, or buts about it. He can get it done.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, can he get it? Like, will he get it done? That's all it comes down to is, will it happen? Will it happen? And it's hard to just sit here year after year after year and have these not even high expectations. They're just like, can we win 8? Like, can we consistently find 8? Can we consistently find 7? In the past 2 years, you haven't. And again, I didn't double down on Peyton Thorne. That was not my decision. Me and Conrad spent 2 years trying to tell you, like, he's not that guy. Like, it's not going to work. And I understand. Think of the pieces he had around him at Michigan State. Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman straight up said, like, I want to go to somewhere where I got a quarterback that can consistently throw me the ball.
And we saw what he was capable of doing.
Come on.
And you also had one of the best running backs in the last
and Kenneth Walker.
10 years or so of college football.
And it's, man, how many, if you have, in last year, you can say he had better pieces around him than the year before. We gave Hugh Freeze the year one, and he had Auburn there in certain instances, certain moments, which led to last year having some more reasonable, okay, like we can get it done. Again, Oklahoma should have won that game. Missouri, you had Missouri beaten. You had them beat on the road in Columbia, and you let them come back and beat you. And to me, going back on Deacon's call, you wasted Jarquez Hunter, completely wasted his time. Because when you look at how this offense goes, no matter how you slice it up, and again, I'm not in there making the X's and O's, drawing up the plays, but at some point, I should be able to line up in a formation and say, we are handing this thing to 27. Find me a defense that can stop him. Because when you gave it to him 20 times a game, he ran for 200 yards. Yes, it was against Kentucky, but think about all the games where we were coming back that following Reaction Monday saying Jarquez Hunter only had 11 carries.
Well, I was about to say, I can't remember which stat it was, if it was when Auburn had, or when Jarquez had over 100 yards rushing or over 20 carries a game, one of those two stats. I mean, Auburn's record was incredible.
Yes.
But then you look and it's like, okay, they've done this 5 times in the last 2 years, but it clearly works. They're just, for whatever reason, didn't want to give in. And like we had a caller say earlier, right? A lot of it seems to be you want to run a certain type of offense, and that is predicated on the passing game, and you don't want to have to adjust. But as we know, you have to adapt to the talent that you have, as we've talked about. And, you know, that's the name of the game in college football now, is finding ways to adapt. So we want to dedicate the rest of the show to the listeners. 205-834-9450. Keep getting your text, your phone calls, anything you want to talk about with our college football conversations of the day. Keep weighing in on Auburn and your expectations for them in the upcoming season. This is the Friday edition of McElroy and Cubelic in the Morning here on Jox. tie some yarn. That's how you do the scarn. Oh, it's awful. I know all the words to this.
You said this is from The Office?
Yeah, it's from the movie that Michael makes, Threat Level Midnight. He does there's like a I guess a musical sequence, and that's the song. Just that laid over Michael Jackson, like that's just so.
Go Captain America. I could do this all day.
It had me in the first half.
Oh man. Well, first I was like, this sounds familiar, and then it's like, oh my gosh, that's really what this is. So yeah.
Oh, man. Welcome back into McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We're having some fun on this Friday. Just get your reaction dedicating to our listeners this final few minutes we have on the show, 205-834-9450. You can also tweet in at Mac and Cube. I'll have some people tweet in. Just going back and discussing some of the Hugh Freeze and Auburn. Royal Payne tweets in and says, classic Auburn would be for Freeze to go 10-2 this year, get a huge extension. They get blown out in the first round of the playoffs and go 6-6 next year. That
would be the Gus Malzahn special, yeah. Be pretty on brand.
Let's see. Coach Loftus tweets in. He says, one thing that gets lost, Saban attempted to hire Freeze, that the 2 wins over UA and Liberty doing well, so you could see being talked into it. Yeah, as a coordinator. That's where I've always said that he's a better coordinator than he is a head coach. I've always thought that.
I think that's yeah, I mean, he's very clearly a very good offensive mind. Like, he knows what he's doing on that side of the ball, and that's why, I think last year bringing in Durkin and the job that he did was so important, because that, I think, took a lot of pressure on him. But we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, and again, I'm not saying that this is exactly what Auburn did, but it's just, if you have the belief or the sentiment as an Auburn fan that, oh, we hired a guy based on what he did against Alabama, maybe you want to look at, well, maybe we should focus on, bringing in a coach that can get us to a college football playoff, and, then we'll deal with who's on our schedule. But, if you're one of the people that believes you hired somebody just because he's beaten Nick Saban twice, that's maybe not the best reason to hire a coach.
Because that's for the life of me, I can't understand how, and I truly mean this when I discuss this about Auburn. It's, what about Hugh Freeze? Like, if you just, again, not taken away from his wins to Nick Saban, but truly make it make sense on why you thought, or why do you think that Hugh Freeze can get Auburn over the hump when you look at his resume, he's never done it. Like, he
beat Nick Saban with Bo Wallace. Come on, Damian.
And I think
with Bo Wallace.
But that's not enough. Like, that's just not enough.
It's not
enough. Where at least with Brian Harsin, you can argue with anybody. At least when he was at Boise State, he was winning consistently.
Absolutely.
He was winning consistently. And I think that's where I have such a disconnect. And even I got to give Texas A&M credit. When they hired Jimbo Fisher, it was because of what he had done on his resume.
I mean, he won we can criticize him all he wants, but he has a national championship.
He's won. And you look at all these other different coaches that have gone from different places. Like when Dan Mullen went back, when he went back to Florida as the head coach, you at least thought, like, okay, he was the offensive coordinator with a lot of talent. He can at least turn this thing around, and he did. Like, he got him back at least competing at a high level.
Yeah, they were in the SEC championship. Yep.
Right, and I look at Auburn, and I'm thinking, okay, if these are the expectations, then you can't be upset when Hugh Freeze has shown that this is what he's done everywhere he's been before. So why do you think now all of a sudden that it's going to take it to the next step or the next level when he's never done it anyway? And again, he beat Nick Saban twice. Great. But then look at all the other games and when he was at Ole Miss. Like, look at we talk about Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema's got to win over Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss.
Well, and we talk about, we talked a lot about Lane Kiffin and the incredible job he's done at Ole Miss, and this is the first time you've won back-to-back, double digits win seasons, or the first time that you've done this and that, and it's, that's more so the stuff. And again, I'm not saying that, Lane Kiffin needs to be the next Auburn coach, but I'm just saying that's the kind of stuff I feel like you look at as a coach and go, man, he's doing something that's never been done here before.
Right.
Can that translate to another program? And when you just look at the accomplishments that he has and you go, oh, yeah, he's doing all these things that Hugh Freeze wasn't able to do when he was at Ole Miss, and it kind of puts some things in perspective there for you. And again, I don't think Hugh Freeze is a bad coach. I think he makes bad coaching decisions at times.
Right.
But this is, again, if you want to put these doubters to rest, you want to silence us, then that's fine. Go out there and win some football games. Don't make coaching blunders. Give the ball to your best players and, go out there, win 8-9 games. And then we're having a different conversation. But, again, can that happen? Absolutely. But can Auburn go 6-6 again? Absolutely.
Right.
Something's got to change.
Let's continue on the phone lines. Let's go to Dave and Huber wants to talk some Auburn. What's going on, Dave?
Yeah, I guess, gosh, Auburn having 2 10-win seasons over the last 10 years is unacceptable. I look back at Gus Malzahn. It's like, you know what? He beat Alabama as much as anybody did.
Yep.
But Auburn's got to find some consistency. And I just don't understand. Hugh Freeze comes in as the offensive guru, the quarterback whisperer, but yet his quarterbacks all come out of the transfer portal. Why can't he recruit and develop a quarterback? Gus Malzahn had a little bit of that.
It's a fair
problem.
question.
I mean, he did. He did bring in Marshall, the kid from Georgia, who was a defensive back, played quarterback in high school, and he developed him in a very effective quarterback. But I don't know. I think the Auburn people just need to be patient, man. You've got to, what I think is going to happen is you look at his schedule for this year. He goes 6-6. They're going to start screaming, yelling. They'll get rid of him. They'll pay another buyout, and they'll be on their search again. They've just got to stick with this guy, even if it takes 2 or 3 more years. And you say, you know what? How long's it been there? What's this, his 4th season?
This will be his third
season. He said, we gave him 5 years. We don't see anything any different. We don't, but they got to get some consistency going. Because recruits, what's happening is they commit. They don't know to commit. Hey, is the coach going to be there? We don't know, and it's that way every single year. And they lose recruits over that. I wouldn't go there. All the naysayers, they don't know if he's going to be there. They kept saying, if Gus Malzahn loses this week, he's gone. Well, if I'm a recruit and it was right at the height of recruiting season, what am I going to do? Well, yeah, I'm going somewhere else. I don't know if he's going to be there or not. There's no consistency. So, but anyway, that's my take. But anyway, I hope to see them relevant again, because when they're relevant, it makes things a whole lot more fun.
That's a fact, man. Dave, we appreciate you. Let's go to Chapman in Birmingham. Let's talk some Auburn. What's going on, Chapman?
What's going on, man? I was calling this. I think my call is kind of aligned with just got off, but we just wanted to check in and see y'all thoughts about if Gus does go 6-6. Like, do you stay with him and allow him to be there for the 5-year term, or is his his opportunity has already kind of scaled out and it's time for a new transition? So I am an Auburn fan, but over the years, everything has been not looking good for us. But from y'all perspective, how y'all look into the intel of the game and the sport, if he goes 6-6, does he stay? Or if you were to,
if he goes 6-6, I think he's done. Straight up.
He's done.
Yeah.
Okay. So if he's done, if he goes 6-6, who is out there that could come in and create a system that fits Auburn that will propel them or get them to that 8-4, 9-3, 10-2, back into the game of how they used to be?
Well, who has done that for Auburn in the past? Because how long has it been since Auburn's had back-to-back double-digit win seasons, whatever?
Right. It's
no one has done that. So, I mean, I know what you're asking for, but you're literally asking for the impossible, because how often has it been done?
Right. And that's where
you're saying that Auburn doesn't have a potential of getting back into that, where the Georgia or the
that's where I have the question mark. It's never been done. So how long of a window do we keep saying potential to where we actually have the results? That's the only thing, Chapman, we appreciate your call, but that's the only thing I cannot. It's Auburn has spurts. They have moments of greatness, but then that's what they say, or that's what they think the program is, when realistically it doesn't happen that often. It just doesn't. And that's what's so puzzling is, man, how long do you wait? How long do you wait before?
And I will say,
I just don't know.
And I do think that, especially here in this state, it is unique in the situation of what we just talked about with Auburn. And it makes it so much more difficult and frustrating as an Auburn fan, I imagine, to look on the other side and go, oh, well, the other team just reeled off 17 straight years of 10-win seasons, and we can't do it twice. And that only adds to the pressure of the situation. I'm not saying that's an excuse or anything, but that only is going to make it all the more difficult. So we have more of your text to get to. We'll get to those, wrap things up, put a bow on it. You're listening to McElroy and Cubelic here on Jox.
What?
They've gotten funnier as the show's going on.
But it's good though. I'm like,
oh yeah, I'd listen to
I
it.
like the vibe. But that is a mean left turn. Like, what? That is great. That is great.
Saber's spinning the hits today.
He really is. Like,
we've had a couple people text and ask about the music. It is John Saber. He is the one.
It's not me
orchestrating this. It's been fantastic.
And also, how in the world can you spell my name wrong twice?
Which one? Damon?
Right. It went Damien with an I-E-N, and then it went to Damon. Next Friday. Damon? It's Damien. Damian. D-A-M-I-A-N. I-A-N. But it's all good, though. It's all good. At least I'm in your heart.
That's right.
I appreciate it.
It's the thought that counts.
It is. It is. We appreciate y'all hopping on with us today. It's been fun. It's been a fun couple hours. I mean, if you're an Auburn fan, maybe not as much because you have to stare reality in the face.
Well, the conversation has been good, but I pointed this out in the break. I don't. And again, like, okay, we haven't gotten to read on the air every single text that we've gotten because we've gotten so many because y'all are, great listeners, but it's not like we have a bunch of texts from Auburn fans or any text from Auburn fans along the lines of, oh, y'all are way off on Auburn, or I can't believe you're saying this about Auburn. Everyone seems to be in general agreement. Yeah. This is the state of things on the Plains.
It really is. It really is. Josh in Huntsville says Freeze can't get fired. His last name is Freeze. He got no worries. And a buyout too, man. Like again, how many coaches are you really gonna be paying?
Well, let's be honest, he won't get fired. He will announce that he's stepping down from the program.
Yeah. But realistically, where would Auburn go as far as finding a new head coach in the event? And not saying it's going to happen, but where would you go?
Yeah, I think Kenny Dillingham would be a great name, familiar with the program, obviously, has done a great job in a short time at Arizona State.
Yeah.
I think that's somebody you would think about. I think John Summerall.
I love John Summerall.
And yeah, absolutely fantastic coach. I think that's somebody that you would have to entertain as well.
You get Jimbo back?
I don't think I would go down that route personally.
Why not? He ain't gonna ask for too much money. Still getting that Texas A&M bread.
I would have similar concerns about him and the problems he had at Ole Miss, or excuse me, at Texas A&M, where it just seemed like he had fallen behind a little bit in terms of, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. But
your boy Don texted in Rhett Lashley.
That's another person that is familiar.
Are y'all
with
gonna
the
actually
program.
let him call plays?
That's
like, are you gonna actually let him coach instead of just having him as just a stand-in for Gus Malzahn saying, "Nah, it's my offense, big dog."
And I do think it's interesting. Somebody brought it up earlier, right? If you're a fairly big name head coach and you've got prospects, and you look at Auburn and you go, y'all kind of had a revolving door at head coach here in the recent history. Do I want to gamble on not having a job in 3 years?
Bobby Petrino.
Tried once before.
Rich Rod.
I don't think you.
Well, Bama tried once before.
Yeah.
Glad that. Love you, Coach. Glad you didn't come to Tuscaloosa. It worked out for everyone.
I know exactly who they need to get. Josh Heupel.
No,
he can get you out the gutter. Ask Tennessee.
He's going to Oklahoma.
They're going to get Jeremy Pruitt. His show calls is up, right?
Not yet.
Oh, dang.
Not yet.
Never mind then. Maybe that's another conversation for another day. Who could they get? Who knows? 3-man front's coming up next.